Oh, that's great. There we go. Now I can see that I'm live. I covered my window enough that I would not be able to see what it was that I was doing, which is probably not the best of ideas. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show of today's 2/20/12/02 Core 2 A+ study group. I like doing these A+ study groups. This is our second of two this week. We did a Core 1 study group on Tuesday. Today is our Core 2 study group. And I have all new questions, of course. And let's see. I also have a link if you wanted to put your digital pin in our somewhat digital pin cushion. There's our pin cushion. So wherever you're joining us from, you can place your dot on the screen so that other people can see it as well. And if you'd like to view that, you can see it at the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. We'll make that happen. Okay. We are slowly recovering from whatever it was that I got on Thanksgiving, and I think I can talk better today, but just a little bit, just a tad, every day, a little bit better. We'll figure it out. Oh, we got a lot to go through today. I have all new questions in the first hour. If you want to submit a question for the second hour, you can do that at any time from the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. There's a tab at the top. You can choose that as well. Folks are checking in the chat room from all over the place. Folks look like they're coming in from Montana. I'm assuming you use the MT abbreviation as the U.S. Postal Service clearly intended. We've got Tampa, Florida checking in, Gainesville, Florida checking in. The Floridians, as well as myself, are here. What is the deal, by the way, Floridians? Why am I cold? And Naples is here. Maybe Naples is warmer. Orlando is here. I don't understand. I'm now up in Gainesville. I'm from Tallahassee, so we would get cold weather occasionally. I mean, Florida cold. Let's not go crazy. Occasionally, every few years, you might have a cold snap come through and it might snow and dust the ground a little bit and then it's gone. But I'm in Orlando now. It's supposed to be sunshiny and we're supposed to be out by the pool, and I am not. It's a, how freezing cold is it? I'm looking for the folks that are in Edmonton is checking in as well as Suffolk, Virginia, Michigan. You guys are getting ready to laugh at me here in a moment. It is freezing cold. I'm not even sure if I need to wrap my pipes at this point because the weather tells me it's 64 degrees Fahrenheit. How do people live like this? I don't get it. So here we are. Here we are. Okay, it's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's a little bit like that, but we're not used to that. We don't like that. If I have to wear socks, it's a bad day. We don't like that here in Florida. So that's one of those things that is kind of funny. Just a little bit funny. And by funny, I mean not funny. I should have captured this, and maybe I'll be able to. In fact, I should just transfer over this thing that I captured earlier on my iPad. Where is, did I stick it in my photos? I probably did. That's something you don't want to look at. Let's bring up my photos. I don't know if you want to look at it or not. It's really mostly just a bunch of nonsense. There's nothing bad in there. I mean, it's just there. There you go. There you go. A little hint to my crazy life. So I got this. Let's put this up on the screen. I can airdrop this to myself. I want to show you what my iPad did to me. In fact, we'll do it. Let's do it in the after show. I have things that I want to show you in the after show. We'll make that happen. Now, I'm in Orlando, of course, as I mentioned earlier, in the freezing cold weather. And what's kind of funny, obviously, Orlando is an enormous tourist destination, 24/7. I knew the folks in Edmonton would point and laugh because they're at negative 24 degrees Celsius, which if you do the math, I'm not sure how many dollars are in, what's the conversion rate? How many pennies are in a Celsius? Somebody will figure that out for me. We'll make this happen. Do I have study groups for Security Plus? Why, I certainly do. You can find our calendar at professormesser.com/calendar. I have both my Network Plus and Security Plus next week, a week from today, I believe, if I remember my calendar correctly. is the study group for Security Plus. Tuesday of next week is negative 5 degrees Fahrenheit. I have family in Edmonton, we always ask him, what in the world? What are you doing? How does that work? It's like, well, it just does. You just do it. It's just so normal. And I feel like I would not be able to survive. I feel so weak in comparison, because that is chill. Because we don't understand cold weather really in Orlando. In Orlando, we don't have pipes that are wrapped. All of our plumbing is on the outside of the house, along with all of the other things that are connected. Our hot water heaters are on the outside of our house. That's something you would never do up there. Everything is inside, and it's in, a secure area, something that at least doesn't get freezing. It's a whole different world, and I don't know anything about it. I don't know about snow tires. I've never had to deal with that. I don't know about... There's some things. Being in North Florida, things did get cold. We did have wrap pipes. You would have to check and make sure that you didn't have any burst pipes when it froze. But those days, those nights when it would get into freezing was very rare. It was few and far between, as they say. We got about 3 minutes until we get started. Yeah, that's right. This is not the study group. I do have people sometimes send me emails saying, well, I was going to watch, but it was really just the back of your head and you weren't really talking about anything. Like, well, that describes me most of the time. But in this case, this is the pre-show, as they say with the quotes in here. So, but I appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate you getting inside, wrapping up. We'll do a study group. Maybe we'll learn something today. I always learn something on these study groups. We'll have a good time with this. Oh, let's see if I have more of this to work through. It's supposed to warm up over the next couple days, so I'll be out of this horrible mood. It's not that bad. I really am. I'm playing it up just a little bit for the audience here, but I just don't like it when it gets below 70. Don't appreciate it. I am personally offended by it when it happens. So it's a unique situation, but it makes it nice to go outside. You can go outside, go for a walk, and go see the parks, and go see Orlando, and you're not sweating. Because most of our comparison to should we do that in Orlando always involves a little bit of how miserable is it going to be? Right now, we're in the non-miserable time. This is a great time to be. And as they properly said in the chat room, at least is humid. Solidarity, my brother. Oh, the humid air is that's what we want, is the humidity. That's another thing my folks, the family members up north, don't appreciate when they come down. It's like, how do you breathe? Oh, it's so good. You can just breathe it in. It's nice to be able to feel the air as you're breathing it. I know that's not a universal truth, is it? It's all about where you're from, I guess. That's really what home is about. It's where you're from. It's what you're used to. So everybody else has a different thing going on. What are we covering today? Well, other than the weather, we are going to talk all about topics associated with the 220-1202. That is the Core 2 A+ exam. We'll talk all about that. Most of that. In the after show, we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you want to submit a question for the after show, hit the link on your screen, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you can submit a question at any time. Anytime. Yeah, I just went out west for a while last month, and no humidity in the air. Florida people don't do well with that. There's all kinds of little tips and tricks I have now for solving that problem. People are wondering, why are you falling apart? What is wrong with you? Well, it's no humidity. We have to have it. We have to figure those things out. Would you say the practice exams, my practice exams, are harder than the actual exam or about equal? They've designed to be equal. They're designed to be the best comparison to the difficulty level, and I've designed them that way. I wrote every question, so I know. I go through a lot with every single one of those questions. Oh, look, it's 12 noon. Time for a live stream. Let's pull this up. Somebody remind me in the after show to explain what I saw with my clock in the pre-show, and we'll talk about that. But I will forget an hour from now. So you have to be my brain. Let's start the keynote. Let's look for a green light. We got it. We're playing. We're doing this. We got that. Okay. Ready for a live stream. Let's do this one. Shall we? Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 2025 Professor Messer 220-1202 A+ study group. This is the study group where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. And the questions that we will be covering today will be all new questions from the 220-1202. This is also known as the Core 2 exam. We have a lot to step through today. We talked about a little bit of it in the pre-show, but if you would like to follow along with the questions we have, you can easily do that if you are here live by popping open a new browser window and going to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. That link is there all the time we're live. If you're watching this on the replay, that link will not be available to you. I am so sorry. It is just not something that we can have working somehow in the time frames after the fact. Maybe we'll find a way to do that in the future. I'll work on that. I'm on it. We'll make that happen. If you go to that link, professormesser.com/QA, there will be a question waiting for you on that link. The question is one from a previous study group, so we refer to this as a rewind question. Before I give you the question and the possible answers, I want to remind you that all of the questions should be answered at the link that you will see on your screen, which is professormesser.com/QA. It is not in the chat room. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. This question asks, let's see if I can get things working properly. Here I am stopping things from working. We're going to click something else. My keyboard is suddenly, oh, I know what it is. My keyboard is now thinking it's on another computer. So we fixed that as well. We can talk about that in the after show too. Here is your rewind question of the month. It asks, a network administrator has configured UPnP. Which of the following would be associated with this change? Would that be authentication is required for network access? Could be helpful if you could see that. Static IP address assignments, filtering of inappropriate content, server access from external clients, or visibility of wireless network names. Something will change when you make that configuration update. I want you to tell me what that is. If you want to answer this question again, please go to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We will come back to this question in just a moment. Thanks for joining us today. We do one of these study groups for A+ Core 2 once a month. We do a Core 1 study group also once a month. We did that one 2 days ago. Now we're doing the Core 2 study group. And next month, we're also fitting in 2 study groups in the same week, which we don't normally do. But for the holiday season, we'll get it all done before everybody leaves and goes off to do the things that they do in the last half of the month. So join us next month on Tuesday, or next week on Tuesday, for our Network Plus study group, and Thursday, a week from today, is our Security Plus study group. If you want to follow us when we are not here and live, you can go to professormesser.com/YouTube/Twitter or /X/Instagram/LinkedIn. You get the idea. That's a great way to find us on your favorite social media network. Also let you know that somewhere in this first hour, ideally, I will be providing you with a special code series of instructions so that you can obtain a continuing education unit credit. This is for renewing your certification. So if you don't have a certification, this is probably not very important for you. But if you are joining us and you would like to earn that cert or renew that cert by taking the CEUs, listen in. I'll give you all the details somewhere in the first hour. Just listen in, and hopefully I will remember this as well. Let's talk about the A+ exam. Current versions of the A+ exam are the 220-1201 and the 220-1202. You'll sometimes see these referred to as version 15 of the A+ exam series. These exams were released earlier this year in March, so they've been around for about 6-9 months or so. You also have an estimated retirement for these exams to be somewhere around September of 2028. So if you are someone who is planning to take your A+, perfect time to do it. This is the current version of the exam, and you have plenty of time before any of the content on this exam is ever going to be changed. The exams itself, you have to pass 2 separate exams to earn your A+, the 220-1201 and the 220-1202. These are both graded on a scale between 100 and 900, and you have to earn a 675 to pass your Core 1 and a 700 to pass your Core 2. So you have to do a little bit better. Once you pass your exams, both of these exams together, that certification is now good for 3 years, and you would only need to renew the certification to continue to be A+ certified. That links in also with those CEUs I was just talking about, although there are many ways that you can use to renew your certification. There is a link in the YouTube video description of this video that does describe, there's a video that goes through many different versions of things you can do to renew your cert. You might want to have a look at that. The Core 2 exam, which is what we will be talking about today, has 4 different domains. It has operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, and operational procedures. And I have questions for you today that come from all 4 of those different domains. If you are watching this video, then you're getting the benefit of seeing my smiling face on the screen with you, but you might be in a place where you're not able to watch a screen. You might be driving, you might be working out, so you might just want to listen to an audio-only version. I publish these in a podcast format. If you'd like to add this to your favorite podcast listening program, you can go to professormesser.com/podcast. If you are using a streaming media service, maybe you're on Spotify, for example, you only need to search for Professor Messer, and you will see all of my podcasts will show up on Spotify there as well. It's a very easy way to find us, listen in, and stay up to date on the latest study group and the latest questions. Also, about a day after we're done, you'll notice the YouTube video description is updated with a bunch of links in the timestamp. These timestamp links are in the YouTube video description. So you can go to that description, find exactly what you're looking for, click on the timestamp, but these don't happen automatically. They happen thanks to the hard work of my marketing manager, Lori. Hi, Lori. She's watching the replay of this, and she's putting all of those timestamps into every single one of these YouTube video descriptions to make your study process go as smoothly as possible. Thank you, Lori. If this is something that you like, she's watching the YouTube replay as well. You can give her a thumbs up. You can give her a heart. You can tell her thanks. These are great tools to be able to use, and you can go back to any of our previous study groups and see these links as well. We also have a Discord server, so when we are not here live online, I'm usually hanging out in our Discord along with thousands of other people who are studying for their A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus exams. This is something where you just have a question about the exam process. Maybe you have a question about one of the topics themselves. There are a lot of very smart people that are hanging out in there that can also help you. And somebody's usually in there 24/7. There are people around the world following the sun that are in that chat. So this might be also a great place to go to do some additional studying. You can find out more about that at professormesser.com/discord. Eventually, you will need to take your exam. And you can, of course, go to the CompTIA website and pay full price for this exam. But wouldn't it be nice if you could save a little bit of money off of that voucher? It's difficult to find voucher discounts. Well, I have them on my site, and there's nothing that you would need to do. There's no coupon code. You don't have to visit a certain URL. You don't have to add anything as an extension into your browser. They're just already discounted. So these are applying to people that are in U.S. or you're in Canada or U.S. territory. And it's for any of the A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, or other CompTIA exams. Also let you know that if you purchase the exam from my site, not only are you getting the voucher for free for a discounted rate over what's normally there, but you also get something for free. You get my Exam Hacks ebook for free. This is something that is only available when you purchase a voucher or you purchase one of my success bundles. I don't sell it separately. So this is relatively exclusive to those 2 products. You can find out more at professormesser.com/vouchers. In any case, you're saving money regardless. It's a great link to use to be able to get a little bit of money off that discount, save some money off your exams. We also have retake options on those vouchers as well. So if you would like to buy a voucher with a little bit of insurance, those are also available at a discounted price. What could be better? professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's talk about the question I asked earlier, which was a network administrator has configured UPnP. Which of the following would be associated with this change? Would it be that authentication is required for network access? Would it be that we have static IP address assignments? Would it be filtering of inappropriate content? Would it be server access from external clients? Or would it be visibility of wireless network names? What did you choose? I don't know. I haven't looked. So let's find out. I'm going to close the poll and we'll see what you chose. Rainbow. We got a little bit of everything in this list. We did not get a majority, but the plurality of you at 39% said this would be server access from external clients. 26% of you said that this is something that would require authentication now for network access because we have configured UPnP. We have 14% of you that said now this provides for static IP address assignments. 12% said it changes the visibility of wireless network names. And then we have 9% that said it's filtering of inappropriate content. We almost had double digits for all of these. So we really weren't quite sure what we thought the answer was for this one. Well, 39% of you did answer that this means that you now can configure server access from external clients. That's the reason for configuring UPnP. And if that's the answer you chose, you got that one absolutely correct. UPnP stands for Universal Plug and Play. This is confused often with the plug and play features associated with Windows operating system and other operating systems as well that can automatically find hardware that you add to your computer. This is not that. This is something completely different with a similar name. Thank you, Java and JavaScript, for leading us down that road. UPnP, Universal Plug and Play, means that we can have our router automatically, and firewall especially, automatically reconfigure itself to allow inbound access to our network depending on what applications we're using. Does that sound scary to anyone else? It should, because this is also something called zero configuration. That's not often something you really, really want. Imagine the applications you're running determine the security of the internet-connected router. And that's one of the reasons that we tell people it's probably not a best practice to run this. There might be a very specific instance, a corner case, something that is relatively unusual that might require you to enable universal plug and play. But the best practice for any IT professional, especially someone who comes from the cybersecurity side, would be to automatically disable that on your system. So if you have a router that has configured universal plug and play, you might want to unconfigure that. But it is very useful if you want people to come inbound to your systems because you don't have to do any configurations on a router. I get the idea. A lot of people out there who just want to run a certain app don't want to have everybody come through the system or have to reconfigure their own router. Can you imagine telling a family member, oh, here's what you need to do. You need to set port forwarding, set it for port 8080, and it's going to redirect to an IP address that's on the inside of your network, 192.168.1.3, and we're going to configure that to go to port 80. There, see how easy that was to configure? So I think we see why they invented universal plug and play, so you don't have to have that conversation. The problem, of course, is that there are security concerns about that. So I think this is where universal plug and play is something that is a good idea just to remain disabled by default. And then you won't ever have to worry about that particular feature running on your network. That was the answer. 39% of you said server access from external clients, and you got that one absolutely right. Now, 26% said authentication is required for network access. That would be because you probably configured network access control or 802.1x. It would not be related to universal plug and play. 14% of you say static IP address assignments is what you would have configured here. That's not what universal plug and play is used. You can do reserved IP addresses if you were using DHCP, but generally a static IP address assignment is something that you would configure manually on a system. We have 12% of you that said visibility of wireless network names. That's probably because you were enabling or disabling broadcasts of the wireless BSSID, ESSID information. So if you have an SSID broadcast suppression, that would change the visibility of network names, but configuring UPnP would not. And then lastly, 9% of you said filtering of inappropriate content. Very often our routers, especially home-based routers, do have some type of URL filtering or content filtering built into them, but UPnP is not associated with content filtering. Instead, the answer we were looking for was server access from external clients. Well, you did about what I expected. We have not asked that particular question in probably a year. I think I went all the way back a year for that one, and I intentionally tried to find a hard one. So if you didn't get that one right, well, that actually is a good thing, because now you know what the right answer will be when you finally sit down and take your exam. The question we just went through, however, was a multiple choice question. So if you didn't even know what the answer was, you could have guessed, and you might have gotten it right. You had a 20% chance of guessing and getting it right. CompTIA doesn't want to give you that much guessing ability on their exams. Certainly the bulk of the exam is multiple choice questions like the ones we have here. But the issue is with other types of questions. You will get a handful of questions at the very beginning of your exam that are not multiple choice. CompTIA refers to these as performance-based questions. You might see this abbreviated as PBQs. Performance-based questions are effectively anything that's not multiple choice. So it could be a fill-in-the-blank question. It could be a drag-and-drop question. It may be a question that asks you to put things in different categories or put things in a particular order. Just think about any way that you could possibly ask a question that's a performance-based question. Now, the important part about performance-based questions is that they're not asking you about something you don't know. All of the topics of these performance-based questions are based on the official CompTIA exam objectives. So if you know the exam objectives, I very often say it really doesn't matter how they ask the question, you will be able to answer it with no problem. So I have for you today a new performance-based question. The first new question of every study group is a performance-based question. And this question is a little bit backwards from the questions that you might get in other performance-based questions. This question asks, identify the utility. And I have for you on the screen 4 different result pages from a command line. In this case, it looks like all of these are Windows command lines. So from these Windows command lines, I typed in something that gave me this output. What did I type in? And that's what I want you to tell me. It's kind of a fill-in-the-blank question because I'm not prompting you with what these might be. I'm not giving you a list. This is not a drag and drop. You just have to answer the question. And you answer this question by going to the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. As I mentioned earlier, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We will instead step through all 4 of these and see what kind of answers come in. I will be monitoring these answers here. There's obviously 4 that we're looking for. What is A, what is B, what is C, and what is D? What did I type in to get these results? We often do it the other way in that mix. So that's one of those where usually I'm asking you what you would type in to get this kind of information. And I would have you go through the process of typing that in, and we would see the results of that. This is sort of the backwards part of that. We have the results. How did we get those results? And what are these results? What are they showing us? Well, we'll know in a moment, right after you submit the answers by going to professormesser.com/QA and submitting your answers. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Look, Malk joined us. Malk missed our whole conversation about being cold in Florida because I bet he is not at this point. In fact, if you want to put in the chat what temperature it might be at your place, I think we would all be interested. Whenever you start looking at some of these utilities, especially in the Core 2 exam, there are a lot of command line utilities you need to know. I just put 4 of them up, and then I sort of ran out of room. But I could have done another 20 of these. So it's another case where it might be good to know what these different outputs are and how you get there. That's a big part of the exam, of making that happen, is really trying to understand, what do I do next? And I think that's where I kind of focus on these things, is what command provided that information on the screen. As always, please, your answers should be in the link that you see on your screen. If you'd like to answer this question, go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in that answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll instead take your answers online. As you are going through these, I'm seeing a number of answers coming in now, so I don't want to jump the gun too much, but let's step through all 4 of these and see what we had to type in to get to that particular screen. Let's find out what these are. So we're going to identify all 4 of these utilities. We will start with the one that is the A utility up here, which you can see has a number of different, I'm going to zoom up on it a little bit. There we go. A number of different information in here. We have volume numbers. We have letters, which appear to be related to a drive letter. We have labels, which I suspect is that drive. We have the type of file system. We have both a CD-ROM file system. Remember those? I remember back then. We have the NTFS file system. We also have different sizes of those different volumes, and then we have information about them. So how did we get that information? What was the utility we used to make that happen? Well, we'll get rid of this. It was the diskpart command, of course. Diskpart allows you to do a number of different things at the command line. A lot of people are very, very familiar with using the format command, for example, or being able to look at the disk management utility. But what if you don't have access to the graphical user interface of Windows? What if you only have access to the command line? How would you see the volumes that were on your system? How could you format a drive? How could you rearrange the file systems that are on that system without using disk management? Well, you would use diskpart to make that happen. That was the answer we were looking for the A window, was the diskpart utility. And more specifically, I used the list volume function within diskpart to provide that listing of the volumes. Very nifty utility, very important if you're planning to do any troubleshooting. You don't have access to the graphical user interface of Windows. Let's go to the next one on our list, which is window B. Window B, very simple window. Only has a prompt. I type something in, and the output from that command listed deadlist / professor. And that's it. That's all it gave us. And then it put us back at a prompt. Like, it's a relatively simple output. And that's because it was a relatively simple command. And we can see that the command that we used there was, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? That was the command we used. Put all of those letters together, who am I, as one single word, and it will provide you with an output of who you are. Now, it may seem offhand that this is a little extreme and perhaps disturbing. How do you not know who you are? Well, that's because if you do anything in technical support, you do any type of troubleshooting, there will be times when you have 20 windows up on your screen and you start typing a command into a window and you're wondering, is this the right window I should be typing this command into? Who am I logged into on this window? One of the ways you could look at that is, who am I? This might also be a great way to look at who might be logged in on a system that is insecure, that somebody left open. Well, who's logged in here? Let's do a who am I and find out who is logged in to this system. Nice little utility. There's also other functions that can give you a much more expanded output for this individual user. I do show that in my video associated with these utilities. And so you may want to have a look at that video to get more context on that single command, because you can output a lot of information about this particular user. Let's go to the next one, which is the C window. We'll move over. This is not automated, people. This is me trying to move a mouse with I've got, for those of you wondering, I've got things on my screen on the front. I'm trying to move a mouse on a screen I'm not looking at here, but looking at up here. This is the world I live in. So sorry about that. You're getting sort of a behind the scenes. This is inside baseball stuff. Let's look at this next prompt. This is for C, this window. I typed something in, and then I got a bunch of lines. I got lines that are numbered 1 through 8 with timestamps and IP addresses. In some cases, IP addresses were resolved to a fully qualified domain name. What command would have shown me this, and what is it showing me? Well, this is the traceroute command. In Windows, it's the traceRT command to be able to see that. TraceRT, in this case, I was performing a trace route from my studio to the IP address of 9.9.9.9. That is the link, 9.9.9.9. 9.9.9.9 is better known as Quad9, quad9.net, that provides DNS services and other IP-related services. It's a nice utility. It's a nice IP address to remember. if you're trying to troubleshoot something on the internet, because 9.9.9.9 will very often provide you with the results of a ping. It will allow you to perform a trace route. There's some nice functionality there. Those are great IP addresses to know. Also, 1.1.1.1, that would be Cloudflare. They have their own services. 8.8.8.8 is Google. And do we still have 4.4.2.2? Did they ever get 4.4.4.4? I can't remember. I think that was Verizon back in the day. I haven't used that one, but there's a number of IP addresses like that. This traceroute command is showing us each router that this particular packet is going through to get from my device, which is my internal IP address of 10.1.10.1, down to the quad 9 address of 9.9.9.9. You can see there were multiple steps I had to go through, and you can even try to figure out from these fully qualified domain names what these particular locations are. You can see some of these are in Florida, some in Georgia. It looks like it went up to Georgia. I'm not sure where the 50 dot address is because it did not resolve on a reverse resolution from that IP address. So there's nothing in the IP address resolution configuration for that IP. So no names to get, but you could probably do a who is and at least figure out who owns it. And then finally, we got to quad 9. So between my device and quad 9, 8 hops, 8 routers to get between point A and point B. So that is the command that you would use to get that output. Trace route, that was the third window. Let's go to the last one. Window D is an unusual one because I typed something in at the command line, but then the results were not at a command line. The results popped up in this About Windows window. In this case, it's the Windows 10 window because I live dangerously, people. That's where that came from. I had the Windows 11 up, and I thought, no, let's do a better one. Let's do Windows 10. It's the same type of output, whether you're using Windows 10 or Windows 11. You type something in at this command prompt, and that something is WinVer. WinVer. WinVer will show you the version of Windows. I don't know why I'm talking like that. WinVer doesn't show it at the command prompt, however. There's your next question. It doesn't show it at the command prompt. It pops open the Windows, the About Windows screen so to see that. So it's a little unusual to see that when you're expecting something to pop open in a command prompt. So although there are ways to see the version of Windows that you are using at the command prompt, this is not one of them. But it is a command you need to know for the exam objectives. So WinVer is another one of those that would be nice to have. So there's our 4 utilities. We had diskpart was utility A. We had who am I? Who am I? Who am I is the second option there. We have traceroute, in this case, traceroute to 9.9.9.9. And then we have WinVer as the fourth one in that list. As I mentioned, there are, 20 or so different commands we need to know inside of Windows. There's also about 20 different commands, probably a little over that we need to know on the Linux side. So make sure that you are familiar with these commands, that you understand the output from these commands, and you know when they would be used. In our video course, not only do I give you an overview of why this command is useful and important, I demonstrate every single one of those commands in real time. If you haven't looked at that video, that can help you a lot if you're studying for this section of the Core 2 exam. So I was looking at some of the answers we got here. A lot of you did a great job. Some of you even went through the process of figuring out what the traceroute parameters were. So you put in not only traceroute, but you put in 9.9.9.9. I also saw someone put in diskpart and then also gave me the diskpart utility of list volume to show me what the output was. Extra credit for you people. Extra bonus points that aren't real for all of you. You did a great job with that one. Let's go back to multiple choice questions, shall we? We have another question for you. This one asks the question, which of the following would be most likely to appear in an SLA? Which of the following would be most likely to appear in an SLA? Would it be, I keep hitting the wrong buttons today, I apologize. Would it be response time to arrive on site after an outage? Would it be name and contact number for all company technicians? Would it be the daily work hours for employees at the site? Would it be financial statements for the previous year? Or would it be the process for accessing administrator accounts? If you think you know the answer to this one, use the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer to this question. Please, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. I'm begging you. It doesn't suit me. I don't like to beg. So you're doing a great job today, though. Thank you so much for putting your answers in at the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. That's where it's the most fun anyway. And that's what we're here for, is to have a little fun with this. So please do that. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in the answer. This is a very common type of question on the exam in that an acronym is used, but nobody cares what the names are, the words are of the acronym. The question didn't ask you, what do the letters SLA stand for? They're not really going to ask you a lot of questions like that on your exam. They tend to ask you questions that will be an acronym used as part of the question, and you're naturally supposed to know what that is used for in that context. So if you're spending a lot of time memorizing letters to words, also add in what are the letters, what are the words associated with the letters, but perhaps more importantly, what is this? How is it used? When would we use it? How is it implemented into an environment? So that's really the important part of these acronyms. And this is a really good example of that type of question. I'm not asking you what SLA stands for. I'm asking you what it is. And that is primarily where this exam focuses, is understanding that second level of information about a particular topic. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, which of the following would be most likely to appear in an SLA? Is it the response time to arrive on site after an outage? Is it the name and contact number for all company technicians? Is it the daily work hours for employees at the site? Is it financial statements for the previous year? Or is it the process for accessing administrator accounts? We will close our poll. 79% of you, huge numbers, say the answer is to a response time to arrive on site after an outage. We had 10% of you said name and contact number for all company technicians. 10% of you also said the process for accessing administrator accounts. 2% said the daily work hours for employees at the site. And it always hurts me when nobody puts any votes towards a particular answer. 0% of you said this is the financial statements for the previous year. Wouldn't it be great if it was the 0%? Fortunately, you're much smarter than that. It is the 79% of you that said the response time to arrive on site after an outage. This is covered in my video from the 1202 course, the video section 4.1, and the video name is Document Types. That is indeed what we would put into a service level agreement. That's what an SLA is. This is a contract that you commonly will create with a third party, usually a third party providing you with services, thus the name service level agreement, and it specifies your expectations. So you want to know that if you have an outage, how quickly is someone going to be here? Well, for your consumer accounts, for your home internet, we don't have an agreement like that. If you call your internet service provider, they'll say, well, I think the first time we have to come out to your place, how about March? March is good. Do you have availability in March? There's no importance to what they are doing. They are not contractually obligated to bring you a new router as soon as possible. So a service level agreement is when the stakes are a lot higher. A company has a business to run, and if something runs into a problem, they want that problem solved quickly. And if that particular provider wants to provide us with services that we'll be paying a lot of money for, we will also insist that they provide us with a particular minimum level of service. And that is what we would put into a service level agreement. So there's where your contract comes into place. Both sides are signing this. Usually there's also a penalty clause. What if you lose your internet access? The SLA says you have to be here within 4 hours of that unintended downtime to correct the problem or to start troubleshooting the problem. And if nobody shows up for 6 hours, they're now in breach of this service level agreement. And there are usually penalty clauses inside of that. Maybe you get a credit on your bill. Maybe you get to there's something different associated with the billing associated with it. Maybe you have extra equipment on site for future problems. There's many things you can put into a contract. Whatever you want to write into the contract, whatever both sides agree on, that's your service level agreement. And that is indeed what most of you chose, the service level agreement for that. That is the response time that you would use to arrive on site. That's a perfect service level agreement, and that is the example that I even gave inside of my course. But of course, anything that you put into the document is part of the service level agreement. This would not contain a list of names and contact numbers for all company technicians. Your service level agreement is a contract. It's not a contact list. Obviously, we will need to update and maintain a contact list for company technicians, but that's not part of the service level agreement. The service level agreement also does not keep a list of the daily work hours for employees. That's well outside the scope of a service level agreement. That's assuming, of course, that the services they're providing are not for the employees that are working daily at the site. That might be a different thing. Certainly isn't a most likely scenario. We have 10% said the process for accessing administrator accounts. Many organizations do have formal processes now for getting just-in-time type passwords to be able to use for administrator purposes, but that's not what an SLA is for. That's something completely different that we would use for authentication. And then financial statements for the previous year would be something associated with the financial side, which is not part of a service level agreement. Financial statements for the previous year, obviously not the right answer, and exactly 0% of you chose that option. Obviously, it's the 79% that said response time to arrive on site after an outage, and you would be absolutely correct. Let's see if I can give you a little bit harder of a question. Let's see how you do with this next question that asks, a laptop has powered down unexpectedly after the battery was depleted. Which of the following would validate the integrity of the file system after restarting? Would it be WinVer, GP Update, CHK DSK, SFC, or Shutdown? Oh, I gave you a little hint earlier, didn't I? Hopefully you were paying attention. We'll figure out the answer to these and figured out the best part of all of these. A laptop is powered down unexpectedly after the battery was depleted. Which of the following would validate the integrity of the file system after restarting? Would it be WinVer, GP Update, CHK DSK, SFC, or Shutdown? And some of these things I am saying differently than I normally do. And we'll talk about that in a moment as well. If you think you know the answer, I guess it would be good if I put up the link. There you go. It's at professormesser.com/QA. A number of you have already submitted your answers into this list. As always, please, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. Please use the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. What's that QA for anyway? What did we put? Why do we make it Q? Okay. We've got that link available to you at any point to figure out the details. What do I mean? Validating the integrity of the file system after restarting? Well, that's the question. What I mean is exactly that. So I would like you to validate it. I would like you to understand why we would be doing that as well. And we could talk about that as well. I think that would be a good thing to discuss. How did we get to this point? How did this happen? How did we find ourselves in this position? So it's the beginning of a bad movie. We'll figure out the details. Let's see how you did with this one. The question again asks, a laptop is powered down unexpectedly after the battery was depleted. Which of the following would validate the integrity of the file system after restarting? Would it be WinVer, GP Update, Check Disk, SFC, or Shutdown? Now I think you can see why I didn't use the word check disk when I was talking about this before, because I think it gave a little bit too much away. But maybe not too much. We're 50-50 on this one. We have a little bit to look at here. 47% say the answer is check disk. 46% of you say it's SFC. Have we ever seen a tie for first place that was this close? I don't think we ever have. 6% of you say the answer is WinVer. Come on. I just showed you WinVer. Okay. Well, maybe I think you might be trolling me on that one. 1% of you said Shutdown. And then 0%, again, we got a 0% that said the answer is GP Update. Well, this is one where These two commands are clearly what you had in mind that you had to choose from. It was really a battle between checkdisk and SFC. And I think it's really important to understand what each one of these utilities is used for and what it is looking for on your system. You need to be able to delineate, to separate these out, and understand that they are used for completely different things. The answer here, is it the 47% of check disk? Is it the 46% of SFC? The check disk people win in this case. This is it. This is the SFC did not win that one. Indeed, the check disk was the answer that we were looking for. Check disk is something we use, especially when there's been some type of inadvertent power down. It has been maybe you're turning on a system after a very long time. Maybe somebody pulled the plug out of the back of a desktop computer and it powered off before you were able to power down gracefully. You might want to make sure that the file system of your drive is one that is not corrupted so that you can continue to save and retrieve files from that file system. And very often when a system is disconnected in that way, it is very abrupt when it was shut down, it will very often run this check disk command automatically. Check disk will look at the file system, and at a bare minimum with the check disk-f command, it will check the file system for any logical errors. You can think of this file system and the file system index as more of a table of contents. Your file system would be the entire book, but how do you know where all of those chapters are in the book? How do we find all of the files that are on top of that file system? You do that by going to an index, a listing of where those files happen to be. You can think of this as the table of contents that's inside of a book. You'd look at the table of contents, chapter 3, section 2 is on page 40. Now we go to the book to page 40 to find the actual content. In a very broad level, that's how the file systems work. We have an index, which then takes us to all of that data that's on the drive. But what if right in the middle of writing something to the drive, your power goes out and it wasn't able to update the index? Now we have a logical break between what the index thinks is on the drive and what is actually on the drive. That's a bit of a challenge. And so this check disk command will go through, it'll look at the entire table of contents, the index that's on the drive. It will look at all of the data that's been stored on that drive and make sure there is a proper link. And if there is not a proper link, it will fix those links. In fact, when you try to run this first, it will tell you, well, I can't run it. There's stuff going on this drive. You need to restart your system, and I'm going to run a check disk with nothing else going on at that time. There's also a way to have check disk check the physical drive itself. What if there's a problem saving documents to the drive because part of the drive is damaged, which does occur very often on hard drives and perhaps even just as much, if not more, on an SSD, given the example. So the SSD and the hard drive, you might want to check to see if you're able to write files and read files properly. It will go through this entire process and find any bad sectors, any physical problems with that storage device. And if it finds a bad sector, it will try to restore the data from that bad sector, save it somewhere else, and then mark that sector so that it is no longer used by the operating system. This is exactly what we would focus on for all of these. And of course, if it's locked, like it says here, it'll restart. It'll go through the process of scanning and repairing this drive. That's what check disk looks like on the startup. You can also, of course, get rid of this screen and actually see the check disk happening in real time so that you can make all of that work properly. Hopefully, this is something that you are familiar with. Check disk is an important utility to use. And of course, 47% of you knew that that would be the right answer as well. Now, we did have a large number of people that chose SFC. Basically, the same number of folks, 46% of you, said SFC was the answer that you could use for this one. This is your system file checker, is what that utility is. That's what that abbreviation is. System file checker is looking only at system files and making sure that those files themselves have not been modified in some way. It's not checking the file system, has no idea if your index, your table of contents, it doesn't know if that is correct as associated with the files that are on your system. That's not what SFC does. SFC, most commonly, you'll see this used a lot if you think something may have modified the core Windows operating system files. And by something, I mean malware. Malware is really good at doing this. It will go through and modify core operating system files so that when the Windows operating system starts, it will load the malware version of your operating system files instead of the legitimate and original operating system files. Well, how would you know if something modified things that are associated with the core operating system? Well, you run SFC, and it will check all of the major Windows files and make sure that they are all proper, legitimate, and have not been modified by a third party. This will not check your file system. It won't check your user documents. It won't go into your gaming directory. It won't make sure that your photos are okay. And it will not check to see if the index in your file system matches the files that are stored on the drive. You would probably want to perform a check disk first. And if you are concerned about the Windows operating system files, you would perform an SFC after that. This would not be a case where RAID would help you. RAID is not a backup system. RAID does not help you recover files. RAID does not help when things get corrupted. RAID is there to provide you with redundancy if you lose a physical drive, and that's it. That's what RAID is used for. So make sure that we break that out and understand those differences between a check disk and a system file checker. You might get questions on your exam that are asking you to perform a comparison of those two, and it might be very useful to make that happen. Again, RAID is not a backup system. RAID is not a recovery system. RAID will not help you if your file system index is corrupted. It will only make sure that that corruption is backed up. And I'm not saying backed up. It's a bad term to use. I just told you RAID wasn't backup. That there is a duplicate of that file system on another drive that you can use immediately to get going. Not a backup, because think about this with RAID. This might really put it in context for you. You have a big spreadsheet. It has 1,000 rows in this spreadsheet, and you've stored it on a RAID array. Now you go into the spreadsheet, you accidentally hit Control A and delete, and you've just deleted every cell in that spreadsheet. And you think, oh no, let me recover that. Let me undo it. With the undo keys, oops, I didn't hit the undo keys. I accidentally hit the save key. Now I just saved over my spreadsheet that had 1,000 rows inside of it. Now it has 0 rows inside of it. I just saved it to my RAID array. Well, great. If I lose a drive in my RAID array, I can always get access to this file that I've just zeroed out. So that won't help me. I will really need to have a duplicate, a true backup of that particular data and restore that back to my RAID array. That's why a RAID is not backup. A RAID is simply redundancy in most cases if a drive happens to go bad. There we go. Check disk, SFC, and RAID all in one question. That was a lot going on there. Lot to go through to work through all of those pieces. Well, there is a lot on this exam. If you were to look at all of my A+ videos, we're talking about 137 videos, over 19 hours of content for both of those courses together. But that's because there's so much covered. We have operating systems, we have hardware, there's networking, there's security, there's cloud technologies, there's AI. There's a lot of different things to learn on this exam. One of the things that I recommend you do is to go through all 137 videos and be able to look at all of that content. But I also realize that not everybody has enough time to go through every single one of those. And because of that, I decided to create a series of course notes that takes all of the text from every video, all of the important images, all of the important charts, all of the important tables, and it puts them into one single document. This is a fantastic summary that follows the same path, same structure as my course, so you can follow along if you have the notes already, or if you've already watched the videos, you can refresh your knowledge with the information that was contained within each one of those videos. We have course notes available not only in that digital form that you just saw in a PDF that you can put on any of your devices, but I also have the same information on a printed version. This is the physical edition as compared to the digital edition PDF. So if you like a physical book, this is a high quality, full color. There's the colors inside of it. Full color printing. It is perfect bound, which is that soft book binding, and it has a nice glossy cover on it. You can, of course, get the physical edition. If you purchase the physical edition, you get the digital edition for free. You can download that immediately and start reading through it while you're waiting for this physical edition to be shipped directly to you wherever you happen to be in the world. You can find out more about this at professormesser.com/1202notes. This is also a great way to support what we do here. All of our videos are put online for free, and this is another way to help us support the process of creating and publishing those videos. Also helps other people who are trying to get trained in the same type of content. I think it's a win-win for all of us. You get a great set of course notes, and you help keep this crazy experiment going that we have here. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to professormesser.com/1202notes, or simply look at the menus, the main menus from the hamburger menu on my website. That will also take you to the same place. Thank you so much for your support. If you already have the course notes, thank you so much for your purchasing of those course notes to support what we're doing here. Let's do another question, shall we? Next on our list is this question that asks, a system administrator is configuring a TOTP solution for the organization. Which of the following would be a likely requirement for this solution? Would it be secure hash storage, BIOS upgrades, token generator app, 3-2-1 backup rule, or enabling WinRM? Very specific thing there. A system administrator is configuring a TOTP solution for the organization. Which of the following would be a likely requirement for this solution? Would it be secure hash storage, BIOS upgrades, token generator app, 3-2-1 backup rule, or enabling WinRM? If you think you know the answer, follow the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Instead, go to the link that you see on your screen to answer this question. I think some of you know this one already. We've got a burst of answers. I always watch the number here, and I try to figure out if we get a big bunch at the beginning, maybe that was everyone who really knew what that was. And then it just kind of slows down a little bit. And you should not be, it's not slowing down because you're Googling. I'm looking at you, no Googling. I see you. I see what's happening there. No Googling. Make sure you go through and take this as if we were sitting in the exam center. This is a question that has come up on the exam, and you have to answer it. Just take a pick. It's not going to help you to Google anyway. If you know it, you know it, and if you don't, you don't. And this is the time where you don't want to know it, by the way. If you ever want to get a question wrong, now is the time. I highly encourage you to get all of these questions wrong. I only say that because the only time you ever learn is when you are faced with something that you've never seen before. So hopefully this might be some of you that have never seen this before. I don't want to get 100% of you getting a question right, which doesn't sound right now that I say it out loud, but you know what I mean when I say that. Let's see how you did with this. The question asks, a system administrator is configuring a TOTP solution for the organization. Which of the following would be a likely requirement for this solution? Would it be secure hash storage, BIOS upgrades, token generator app, 3-2-1 backup rule, or enabling WinRM? Did that twice now. Let's close our poll and see how you did. Click, and the results show us big numbers. We got 76% that say what you need is a token generator app. 12% say, no, you need secure hash storage for your TOTP solution. 7% said you need a 3-2-1 backup rule. You need one of those anyway, just not for this particular thing. 4% said enabling WinRM. That is not what we would use here either. And 0%, again, say BIOS upgrades. All right, I want to know what's going on here. Because there's at least, are you getting together? Are you deciding not to put anything into an answer? I need to readdress my life just a little bit on that one. The question here, 76% of you answered token generator app, and 76% of you got that one absolutely correct. That is the answer that we were hoping to find. Well, this is another one of those acronym questions, wasn't it? Those horrible acronym questions, because I asked you about a TOTP. You know me. It's the time-based one-time password algorithm. That's what that stands for. And that's really just a fancy way of saying You know, it's that app you bring up on your phone that changes the numbers every so often. But that's such a long thing to say that we've shortened that to TOTP. That's really what that is. The way this works is really not too difficult. There is an algorithm that presents these pseudo-random numbers that change at standard intervals. Usually it's every 30 seconds or so. And when you initially start it up, both sides have a key that is used to start up the randomness and have a synchronization of this pseudo-randomness across both of these systems, so that when you type it in, the other side recognizes that, okay, we're synced up. And in fact, most of these systems will recognize when the timestamps are getting a little off, and they will get things set up so that they'll move over a little bit. So usually when you log in, you would put in your username, you put in your password, and then it will ask you for the code. This is your TOTP, the time-based one-time password algorithm code, where you would put that in as well during the login process. And you probably have an authentication app on your device, on your mobile phone, very similar to this authentication app. Does anybody even carry around the physical authentication tokens anymore? The physical something you put on your key ring? I bet they probably do in government, in federal government especially. But most of us have now an app on our mobile devices. You probably have multiple apps on your mobile device so that you can have this type of setup. I have my authentication process built into my password vault, my password manager, so that I have a way to add it to any website that I log into. And when I log in, it will automatically add all of that information into the mix. TOTP does indeed provide us with, we will need a token generator app for us to be able to make that happen. So if you're someone who is focusing on rolling out TOTP, then you will need an app or at least a physical token generator to be able to create those particular items. Secure hash storage is not, secure hash storage in general is important for anything. Usually we are hashing and storing information securely that would be related to things like passwords. Obviously, those are pretty important to keep secure. But TOTP is not about securing hashes. You hopefully are already doing that without using TOTP. 7% of you said a 3-2-1 backup rule, which means that we have different requirements for the backup information that we are storing. This describes a methodology, a best practice for the number of backups that you have, where those backups are located, and the type of backup redundancy you have. 3-2-1 backup is a common way to set up your backups on these systems so that you always have at least something that's offsite, you have multiple copies, and you have them on different media. So the 3-2-1 is very focused on that. 4% of you said enabling WinRM. WinRM is a utility that you use for remote access, remote management. That's the RM part of this, so that you don't have to physically visit a device to run a command at a command prompt. You can use WinRM for that. Not part of TOTP. And BIOS upgrades are also not part of TOTP, but you knew that already because nobody chose the answer I put in that you were supposed to choose. Instead, none of you even bothered with that. You knew that that was not the case. Indeed, 76% of you got this one absolutely correct. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that certifies that you were here for 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. That's a continuing education unit. You can earn the CEU whether you're watching live or whether you're watching this in a after show or you're watching this on demand on YouTube. You just ran across this video. It's a year old. Can you use this for credit? Yes, you can. But you have to follow these instructions to be able to earn that credit. You need to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. You need to click a link that says Contact Us. Contact Us will put a form up on the screen. In that form, please put your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put December 2025 Core 2. And then in the body of the message, on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, secure hash storage. Didn't see me going there, did you? Secure hash storage are the super secret code words of the month. Send that to me. Takes me about a week to turn these around, but then I will send you an email that has been digitally signed by me that certifies that you are here for a 1-hour webinar category CEU, and then you can submit that for your renewals. You can give that to your boss if they're looking to see what type of CEUs you have earned. And there are even third parties that will accept these for their certifications as well. Just depends on what you would use these CEUs for. Not everybody needs a CEU, but it's another one of those things that we like to offer. Again, if you would like to receive that email, go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address, in the subject line, please put December 2025 Core 2. And then in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, secure hash storage. And I will turn those things around to you as quickly as I can. I don't know that I can do that as quickly as everybody needs, but if there is an urgent need, you can always send me a note. Sometimes people need a big chunk of 10 CEUs, and they need it quickly. They need it turned around in a day. Sometimes we'll make that happen for you. So certainly something to consider if you are planning to renew your certification using continuing education unit credits. I also want to talk to you about, let me get this right here. There we go. The things that I've tried to do with these courses is to provide you the most accurate representation of the information that you would run into on the exam. I really started seeing a disjointed view of this when I started looking around the industry for practice exams that were available from third parties. And what I found was a lot of practice exams that were woefully out of date and asking for topics that were no longer on the certification. Well, nobody needs that in a practice exam. A lot of times I found practice exams that just weren't made very well. The grammar wasn't very good. It seemed like maybe it was automatically created. Not very useful as well. And most of the questions I ran into did not have the same feel or the same style as the actual exam questions. So I thought one way to fix that is to write my own. So I did, and I created a practice exams book that contains questions that have been specifically written with a similar style, a similar tone, and a similar difficulty as to the actual exam. And the reason we were able to make that happen is because I wrote every single one of these questions specifically with that in mind. So this is not something that happened accidentally. That's the plan, and worked pretty well. We created a whole set of practice exams, 3 separate practice exams, each one of them 90 questions each. They contain both multiple choice and performance-based questions. And I have one of them for you today for us to do. Same thing applies, of course. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We're going to have a look at this question that comes directly from this practice exams book. This is my Core 2 practice exams book. Yeah, I did pick the right one, the Core 2 practice exams book. Here's the question. This is from practice exam A, question 41. It's on page 15 of my practice exams book. The question asks, a system administrator is configuring a server to use 8 bootable partitions on a single SSD. Which of the following partition styles would be the best choice for this configuration? Would it be MBR, NTFS, DiskPart, or GPT? Again, I'm giving you hints in the questions as we go. So this is one where, since this is a PDF, if you have a stylus, you can write on the screen. I don't have a stylus on this computer, but I do have a mouse, and I might select different items. I might annotate on the screen. I can add text to the screen. I can change different things. Maybe there's a certain piece of information that I find important, and I might want to highlight that. This will all be saved in the PDF. Nothing is restricted in these PDFs. You can use them, write on them, annotate on them, do everything, and save all of those so you don't lose any of this detail. In fact, if I go back up, I think there was a couple I was doing earlier that had annotation on them. So it just stays right where he left it. If you just want to know whether this is A, B, C, or D, you can simply go to page 33 and it will tell you if it's A, B, C, or D. But if you want a more detailed overview of this answer, you can go to page 79. One of the challenges here, of course, is that I'm on page 15. If you've ever worked in a PDF, now I have to scroll to page 79 just to see the answer. Oh, of course not. I certainly would not want to do that either. So I put in links inside the PDF itself. All you have to do is click on the details 79 and it takes you to page 79. Click, there it is. And so here's the question again, and it says the answer is D, GPT, and of course, we tell you why the right answer is right. One of the challenges I also found with a lot of these other training materials and practice exams on the internet is they will very often tell you the right answer is D, GPT, but they will either not give you an explanation of why that is the right answer. Sometimes they do, but very unusual to find them giving you a reason why the wrong answers were wrong. This, to me, is the most important part of this question. If you got the question wrong, why did you get the question wrong? It's an opportunity to learn more about that particular topic. And it's something that helps sort of close the loop on that topic and cements it in your mind so that if you get that topic on the exam, you can remember back to that particular question. If you got it right, great. You know it's GPT. I would highly recommend that you also read through the incorrect answers to see if the reason you dismissed the answer is the same reason that I dismissed that answer. So you can have a look at all of those. And then if you didn't understand any of this, you don't know what GPT is, and you don't know about NTFS or file systems or any of that, you can click on these links for the video, and you can watch the video I used to create this particular question. If you have the printed version of this, obviously you can't click the printed version, but I put those QR codes in there so that you can use the camera on your phone and get your phone to go to the correct URL for that particular question and the topics associated with it. And when you're done here, because we're down here on page 79, we want to go back to where we were. We can use the back button that's in your PDF reader. You may not even know there's a back button in your PDF reader. Most of them do. Not all of them do, but the good ones do. And there we are. We're back to where we started, and now we can go to the next question that's on this list. Those are my practice exams. It's another way that we can provide you with tools to help you study for these exams before you go into the exam room. You can combine them with the course notes and get a little bit of a price discount. You can also decide whether you want printed or physical versions. And again, if you get physical versions, you get all of the digital edition versions also available for immediate download at no additional cost. You can find out more about those. Go to professormesser.com/core2PE. That's the Core 2 exam and the practice exams, or simply follow the links at the top of the website or in the hamburger menu if you're on a mobile device. Well, this brings us to the end of the first hour, but we also stick around because we have questions that you are submitting. And if you would like to submit those questions, you can do those at any time by visiting that same link we've been talking about, professormesser.com/QA. All of the questions, all of the topics, and all of the things that you will find on your exam are listed one by one in a document CompTIA calls their certification exam objectives. These are the official objectives from the CompTIA website. I would highly recommend that you go out and have a look at those objectives. If you'd like a quick link that will take you over to the objectives, they are available at professormesser.com/objectives. That will bring up this page. And you can see for the exam objectives, I even give you a view of the CompTIA page because sometimes it's not easy to find where you would get those objectives on the website. You go to the objective summary page, and on that objective summary page is a red box that you add your email address to. If you don't see the red box, then you are filtering it in some way. You've blocked cookies, you've blocked scripts, you've done something. It's not them, it's you. So you need to fix that. Go scroll down to that red box, put in your email address, and you can download the exam objectives immediately. I have direct links to those pages for A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus, or you can simply visit the individual pages also on that screen. That's at professormesser.com/objectives. This is a great tool to use to have a checklist before you book your exam. A lot of people ask me, how do I know if I'm ready to take my exam? This will tell you. This will be the absolute best way to tell you how to do that. professormesser.com/objectives. Oh, and it's free. Did I mention that? No cost. That's the best kind of free, is the no cost kind of free. So make sure you have a look, professormesser.com/objectives. We do one of these study groups every month. I have, of course, 2 more study groups in December for Network Plus and Security Plus. But if you'd like to come to our next A+ study group, you can do that in January. We have our A+ Core 1 study group already scheduled for January the 6th. We also have the Core 2 study group for January the 8th. And if you want to skip up to January, you can also see we have dates also there for Network Plus and Security Plus. There's always something going on. And if you're watching this video and it's a replay and we're well past January, and you want to know when is the next live event, you can go to our calendar and find out at professormesser.com/calendar. I list everything there, and if we need to update or change any of these dates, I always change it on the calendar first so you know you're looking at the most recent and most accurate information. Well, we're through our first hour, but it's okay. We have more happening in what we call our after show, where instead of me asking you questions, you get to ask me questions. These can be questions about technology, they can be about certifications, or they can be about anything else. You can ask anything you'd like. Simply go to professormesser.com/QA and submit your question. Of course, we have our course notes and practice exams for our Core 2 exam. You've already seen those today. If you'd like to know more about those, you can get information and watch a video demonstration of those at professormesser.com/1202success. Also, don't forget about our discounted vouchers. Save a little bit of money instead of paying full price. It's the same vouchers you get on CompTIA's website. You just didn't pay as much. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers. And of course, you can follow us on your favorite social media sites. Just type in professormesser.com/ the name of the place you would like to find us, /Discord, /X, /YouTube, /LinkedIn, /Facebook. If I'm there, you will find us by typing that in. If I'm not there, let me know. Maybe I do need to be there on that social media site so that you're able to find this valuable training information wherever you happen to be on the internet. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this first hour. Stick around for the second hour after show. Don't go anywhere. We'll do that in just a moment. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. Thanks, everybody. One of these days, I will figure out which button to push. There's only a few buttons here. You'd think I'd be able to get it straight eventually. It's time for the after show, everybody. That means that I didn't have to prepare anything for this part because you're the one that does all the hard work for this one. This is the part of our live stream where I want to focus on what you want to know. So now you get a chance to ask me these questions. I have a Q&A already ready to go, and you get there by following this link, professormesser.com/QA. You can type in your question. There's a tab at the top, and I'm going to make sure that I have our polling information on the screen set up so that you're able to see that properly. And of course, now you will see that on your screen is a link that indeed says that you can submit questions for the second hour of the study group at any time. We will be moderating questions during this session, so your contribution may not appear immediately. And Lobo in the chat room was smart enough to remember that I mentioned that I had something I wanted to talk about that happened to me just before I went live today. And it happened on my own systems that are fully secure. These systems are in a perfect place for this. I want to make sure I get this information on the screen. I need to annotate my own screens here. So we're going to do this real quick. I think I can do this real quick. We're going to find out. So on my iPad that I have here, let me quickly crop something. Don't we like cropping? I'm going to bring this up. This is a remarkable. This happens all the time. Of course, I'm going to show you in a moment what I mean when we work through this. Okay, now I have saved my content here. If you look at my studio, let's have a look at the studio here real quick. We got a lot going on. So this studio has streaming information that is coming out. This is my streaming box. So you can see how much bandwidth I'm using, how the caching is working. There's a lot of details over here for video and audio. You can see the audio waveforms going by. Everything's working exactly as I would want. This is my video switching console, so you can see my preview and what's going out live. You can see all of the video inputs that I have. I have 3 video inputs that are not being used there at the bottom. You can see the screen that I'm looking at on my primary computer. I have a secondary display there, so those two. I'm looking at the chat here. This is obviously what you're seeing on a big part of the screen. This is an iPad that normally in the pre-show has this clock up on it. So there's the current time where I happen to be. And this is a free clock that's called Full Screen Clock. Yeah, they didn't work too much on the name. Not a lot of marketing went into that, but that's the name of it. And it was free, so I downloaded it. I like to have a clock there in the pre-show because I get rid of all the clocks that are normally, I have it usually on the top title bar of my computer, but I remove the title bar for our live streams just to get rid of all the clutter. So you're not seeing it when I go to this piece of it. So this is a very interesting app. I thought, well, this is great. It's free. I wonder how they support themselves. Well, it turns out occasionally this will bring up an ad. And I was sort of hoping there were a number of options here that came up on the bottom of the screen here. I was hoping it would show me another ad for this. In fact, it does say view ad. Let's see if I can get it to show me an ad. And let's see what it shows me. Not sure I want to. Nope, it showed me a real ad. So it showed me an ad for Reddit. So that's legitimate. We like that. And if I clicked on OK, it would probably take me over to Reddit, and that would be fine. But earlier today, that's not what it provided to me. It showed me something completely different. Instead, without me prompting, it brought up the ad on the screen. I did not click on it, and it said, click here to continue through to the ad. Sort of unprompted. Well, for a free app, we sort of expect that. We know that that's kind of how it works. That occasionally it will ask you to look at an ad and you'll go through the process of looking at it. It's kind of fun to see what type of ads come up. And it's nice that you have a free app, but it's a trade-off. You can at least support the app and the app provider for that piece of it. Well, when it just said, click here to continue. So I said, well, that's unusual. I can't see the clock anymore. So let's click through that so we can see the ad so I can go back to looking at the clock. What came up, however, was this. It clicked through. This is a screenshot from the iPad. Let me get rid of the things that are on the screen here so you can see it. This is what came up. Apple support. And in fact, just ignore this number. That is not Apple support. I need to annotate this more. So do not call that number. That is not Apple support. That is not a number you should be going to. Now I need to do this for my own state of mind here. So we have this set up on my screen. Let's see if I can bring up, I don't have any annotation here. So this is the Apple, this is not Apple support. Do not call this number. These are bad people. It says, your Apple ID was recently used at Apple Store for $149.99 via Apple Pay pre-authorization. See, already I know this is fake. Because what could you possibly buy at the Apple Store for $149.99? We have placed those requests on hold to ensure safest and security. Let me say that again. I did not make a mistake. That's what it says. It says, we have placed those requests on hold to ensure safest and security. Security with a capital S. Fantastic. Not you? Immediately call Apple support and a fake number to freeze it, the capital F. This was obviously not legitimate. Sure look at these nice people. This is what they look like over at Apple support. It's actually pretty good. Everybody's got Apple in front of them. It looks like people that are in a beautiful call center. As a former director of voice and data for a third-party call center, first, I'm sorry. Secondly, that's not what call centers look like. So that's one of these cases. So this, by the way, is not the first time it's provided me this ad. This is only the first time I'm telling you about it. So I don't know if it's the app that is hooked into a less than desirable ad network, or if the app itself is part of a much bigger type of advertising malware injection type of system. I don't know. I don't know what's going to be there. But it might be worth bringing up to the folks that make the app that has the well-known name Full Screen Clock as what they would use. That was what I ran into today. So this can happen at any time to any person. And you're smart enough to see this and know, okay, that's not the thing I have to worry about. But this is also something that I worry if my family members saw, that they would be clicking on it, they would be calling it. You have to worry what would be there. So That's a very good example of just some very obvious phishing, trying to get you to call a number. I would imagine it's phishing. I imagine if we call the number, which that's a different YouTube channel, and go through the process of what they would do, that's exactly what you would find. So very, very interesting to have those pop up unexpectedly. I was in the middle of setting up for the live stream. I was going very fast. I had other stuff on my mind. A perfect time to present me with a live ad, as if it knew, as if it had an idea. Well, now let's shift gears a bit. Now that you have seen my little, here's what we did today kind of scenario, let's go through the process of looking at the questions that you have submitted. I have the big list in front of me. I will sift through these questions at any time, and let's have a look at some of the things you have sent in for me. We will start with a question from my super good friend, Anonymous. Anonymous says, how different is the Core 2 to the Core 1 exam? Well, they are different exams, but I guess the question is more about difference. How? Do you mean difficulty? Do you mean topics? Obviously, the topics are completely different between the two. It used to be, back in the day, that you would need to pass 2 separate A+ exams to earn your A+ certification. The first exam taught you about the topics, and then the second exam was troubleshooting of those topics. This created quite a bit of challenge because you had to study up on, let's say, motherboards and memory and storage drives and other topics on Core 1. And then you had to pass that exam and then remember all of it for the second exam that now asked you to troubleshoot it. That was a lot to remember. There's a lot that you would have to keep in your brain. And very often it would be difficult if you took the first exam and then something happened. And then the second exam, there was a very long time frame, and you've already forgotten everything from the first exam. That didn't work out very well. So back in the day, the topics between those exams were relatively similar to each other. If we had to do a Venn diagram of the Core 1 and Core 2, there's quite a lot of overlap there. Thankfully, and this happened many, many, many iterations ago, I want to say it was the 700 series, maybe the 800 series, CompTIA completely changed the structure of the Core 1 exam and the Core 2 exam to make them effectively self-contained. Thank you, CompTIA, for doing that. This means that the Core 1 exam focuses on hardware, networking, a little bit of cloud in there, and then the troubleshooting of those topics is in the same exam. Which means if you've studied your motherboard, you've studied the memory, you've studied the storage, you've studied the networking, now you can also troubleshoot all of those in the same exam, pass that Core 1 exam, and now those topics you can push to the side to make room for the Core 2 topics, which are completely different because Core 2 focuses on operating systems, Windows, Linux, has some security in it, and it asks you to do troubleshooting of all of those, but just those topics in the Core 2 exam. If you were ever wondering what's in the Core 1 and what's in the Core 2, you go to the exam objectives. The exam objectives have a bullet-by-bullet, detailed, intricate list of everything you need to know for that exam. So if you're thinking, I don't know if there's really such a little overlap, how much is really different between the two? Here's how you can tell. This is the Core 2 study group, or the Core 2 exam objectives for the study group that we're doing right now. And this has workstation systems, mobile operating systems, various file system types, vendor lifecycle limitations, and compatibility concerns between OSs. That's just section 1.1. Now let's go to section 1.2. Here's another big list. So if you're ever wondering, where does he get all these topics for the videos? There it is. My videos are created new every time there's a new set of objectives. That's usually about every 3 to 3.5 years. And I do that because these update every time there's a new exam. They are in a different structure. They often will add content. They will remove content. And so creating a new video from these allows me to get a very specific training video that is for this specific exam. So, if you're watching my video, it covers topics that are directly associated with this. You can go through this list and you can check it off as you watch the video, because that's what I did when I made the video. That's how tight we stayed to these objectives. That also means that you are watching a course that is giving you exactly what you know to pass this exam. I don't go into a lot of topics that you'll never see on the exam, and I don't cover topics that were removed from the exam in previous versions, like other training courses that unfortunately are out there promoting themselves as the latest and greatest thing. So it's always something good to check on, and the way that you can check on it is going to the exam objectives themselves. That is what will be able to tell you how different those different topics are between the exams. The objectives have everything you need to know. Let's keep going through this list. Here's a question that comes up quite often, and it's a question that I appreciate because it's a problem that I have when taking an exam. This is from Marjorie, who asks, "My exam's tomorrow. Do you have any tips for test anxiety?" Well, I've tried a lot of different things. I'm not a good test taker for this. First off, before I go into the details of this, I get really anxious for exams. My experience on taking an industry certification exam is a lot like this. The day before, I have already mapped out where the testing center is. I know how to get there the most efficient way. I know where I'm going to need to park. I know what their testing center is like because I've already been inside and asked to see it. I know if the testing center is got new equipment or old equipment, and I picked the best possible testing center for me. And that way, when the day comes to take the exam, you don't have to worry about, am I in the right place? Where is this? You're focused more on the content going through your brain of things you need to remember, rather than trying to figure out a new environment to go through. The other part, when I get into the exam, even after doing that, usually I get to these exam centers, there's not much time in the lobby for me. They take me right in, they process, check my ID, we throw everything in a locker, they take me into the exam room, we sit down, they start up the exam, but I am so stressed. There's so much adrenaline going through what I am doing that it's very difficult for me to understand what I'm reading. Quite literally, that's the situation I'm in. So I'd sit down on the exam. This also happens if I take exams at home, although at least maybe the stress of going somewhere is not my problem. The stress of something happening that would cause my exam to stop is my biggest concern, which is why I usually say, don't take your exams at home, go to a testing center if that's a good option for you. But here's what happened. They start the exam. Question number 1. My exam is tomorrow. Do you have any tips for test anxiety? Was that English? I'm not sure what that meant. Let me read it again. My exam is tomorrow. Do you have any tips for test anxiety? There are words here, and I don't recognize the letters. The words themselves, I kind of know what the words are, but there's so much anxiety and adrenaline going on in my mind that I simply am not understanding what I'm reading. I'm so worried and nervous about getting through this exam successfully that now I have now turned myself off. I've now powered myself down. I have no functionality now. No ability to read and understand the English language. So I do have some recommendations for you, Marjorie. My best recommendation I can give, if this is similar to the scenario you have, is certainly find out and be comfortable with the environment that you're going to be in. If you have a chance to drive over there today, maybe if you can't drive, do a Google Street View so you can kind of see where you're going. Oh, there's the parking and there's where I'll go. Got it. Okay. Maybe you're comfortable with that. But the other thing I do is when you sit down and you're ready to take the exam, they don't just start you off with the exam questions. There's an entire document, a contract that you must agree to before the exam starts. And you may notice when you booked your exam, they said the exam is, I think they give you a number like 150 minutes, 145 minutes in length. And you're thinking, no, it's a 90-minute exam. Why are they saying that it's much longer than a 90-minute exam? That's because they have extra time there to check you in and for you to agree to the CompTIA candidate agreement. If you want to know what's in this candidate agreement, you only need to go to whatever your favorite Google machine is and go to find the candidate agreement. I think they probably have a link there somewhere on the CompTIA website. They have a section of the CompTIA website that has a, let's see if I can find the direct link from their website. Here's the CompTIA website. They have a section here under resources for your exam policies. And the very first exam policy at the top is the CompTIA candidate agreement. Let's learn more, shall we? Here is the actual agreement. So this is what is presented to you on the screen when you sit down before your exam starts, and you must agree to this before your exam will start. And they give you about 15 minutes to read through this candidate agreement and finally click OK. To me, that's 15 minutes of an adrenaline cool down, because now you've started, they've clicked go, they've left the room. It's just you and this computer. This is when the anxiety is most high for me. So what I recommend doing is nothing for 15 minutes. Yeah, maybe you read through this candidate agreement, but as I'm talking to you now, I'm telling you to read through the candidate agreement today. Read through it now before you ever go to the testing center so that you at least understand what you're agreeing to. Now, you could, of course, read it during the sitting down part of this, but again, the problem with not understanding English seems to limit my capabilities of doing that. So they've given you all this time to do nothing. So you might even want to read through it. Maybe at some point you start to kind of burn off the adrenaline. You kind of settle into the room. Some words are starting to make sense again. Oh, look, there's an entire sentence that I understood. You don't have to do anything, but just sit there. There's no penalty for just sitting there. There's no penalty for doing it. You just read through it. Maybe there's interesting things in here. Oh, here's the retake policy. What is the retake policy? Let's read through it. You got plenty of time. Read through, get it out of your system, kind of get more into where you happen to be. And that's plenty of time to kind of burn off and settle down a little bit. And then you're done. And at the bottom, you click, yes, I agree to all of this. And then the exam starts. So you've now gone through this entire agreement that hopefully you've already read. You're really just using this as a time sink. You're using this as a cool down, a moment of zen, a time to get your bearings, a time to focus a little bit, and then you start the exam. That's what I do. Not all exams give you this option. CompTIA exams do. But if you're taking a Palo Alto Networks exam, I don't remember if I got one of those or not. Probably didn't use it for the Palo Alto Networks exams because I was a systems engineer for Palo Alto Networks, and I really didn't need to study for that one. So I probably just went as fast as I could through all of those. The other thing that might be good is showing up a little early. You know, sometimes when you get into a room, hi, it's 3:25. I'm here for the 3:30. Oh, we can take you in right now. Let's get you checked in, get your things, get your ID. Let's put things in a locker. Let's get you in this room. Let's put you in the chair. You haven't even stopped. You don't even know where you are. What's going on? So it might be good to show up 15, 30 minutes early. Just sit in the car, sit in the lobby, hang out for a little bit, maybe not a coffee, maybe get a decaf, get a pop, get a soda, and just hang out and let some of that burn off a little bit. I find that when I'm in a place and I'm sitting and I'm just there, I can kind of take it in. Some deep breathing exercises might be good too. So there's some ways to get around the idea of anxiety during these exams. I think it's just something that I will never grow out of at this point. No comments on that one, please. It's one of those situations where I think it's just how my brain works. And so if I take anything that is important to me, and these exams are very important to me, then there's going to be a sense of urgency and a sense of anxiety about it. And that's where those come from. So those are some of the things that I do. Hopefully they can give you some things you can do during the exam to help you with some of that anxiety. Okay. There is a great question that came up in the chat room. And since it is, I don't know if you're trolling me because you know it's a trigger type topic for me or not, but I'm going to take the question, Cyber Drew Gaming in the chat, who asks, during the first part of the power supply lesson in the 220-1201 exam course, when you're talking about not connecting yourself to the power source, do you mean not grounding yourself when working on electronics? No, that's not what I said. I said not connecting yourself to a power source, which is different than not grounding yourself, which is also different than preventing electrostatic discharge. What? What do you mean it's different than electrostatic discharge? Well, that's a good question. So let's go to our course on the 220-1202. I guess that's under the power supply lesson. Thank you. Anybody want to? I now have to figure out which. Isn't that under the core one though? Is it 12? It was the 1201, which is fine. We can talk about anything in the after show. So 1201 is fine. It's under the hardware section, under power. It's under a section called power. So let me bring up the presentation itself so that you can see what I put and what I mean by that. So here is, I'm just going to show you the raw slide here. You'll be fine. You won't be triggered too much if I don't put it into display mode, right? So we are intentionally not putting it into display mode because here's all the slides we use. And this is the slide. It says always disconnect from a power source when working on a device. That's a good best practice. That is always what you should be doing. That's not just a best practice. That's a required practice. Do not work on a device with it connected to a power source unless you really are testing the power inside of that system. Sometimes you have to power it up to be able to test it with your multimeter and other things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you now need to replace the video card in a system. You need to unplug from power, period. There's also cases where some devices are storing that power in capacitors. That's what capacitors do. So you may be required to discharge that power before you touch anything. You'll often see this with laptops. They'll tell you to hold down the power button for 10 seconds. Then you can start touching things inside the laptop. Similar idea for printers, similar ideas. This used to be a big problem on CRTs, the cathode ray tubes that we used to have, because they would store a lot of power and they'd zap you real good. They could kill you real good. So fortunately, we don't run into CRTs much anymore, but we still have the problem of power being stored in capacitors. So make sure. So this is the part that was mentioned by Cyber Drew Gaming in the chat, who said, never connect your body, yourself, to any part of an electrical system. I've had to really hone these words through the years so that it was very precise what I'm talking about. Do not connect yourself, your human self, to any part of an electrical system at all. I have literally seen images on the internet. You will find devices on Amazon that will encourage you to connect to the ground plug of an outlet. This is an exceptionally bad idea. What is that ground button? What does that ground thing do on an outlet? It's usually a third connector on the outlet. Sometimes it is not. Sometimes it is the second part of it. But very often when we're connecting these electrical systems, we have that ground plug that is on our computer. See, if I don't even think I have a picture of the ground plug on a power supply that I could show you, but you know what it looks like. It's that third plug. And there will be devices that say, oh, you need to electrically ground yourself so you can prevent any type of electrostatic discharge while working on the system. First, don't connect yourself to an outlet. What are you doing? That ground is there in case some other device has a short and needs to take that additional power and send it to ground so it doesn't electrocute anybody. Well, you've just plugged yourself into the system that isn't intentionally designed so that you will not kill yourself. What did you do? You plugged into that. That's not a good idea. Never connect your body to any part of an electrical system. Don't connect yourself to the hot. Don't connect yourself to the ground. Don't connect yourself to the neutral. Don't connect yourself to any part of it. And the reason you don't connect yourself to any part of it is because it can kill you. That ultimately is your problem with this. And I even have to put a separate line just in case folks don't get the nuance, and they don't. So I spell it out because I want you to be very clear on what I am saying here. Do not connect yourself, your body, to the ground wire of an electrical system. Never, never, never. Most of the time, that ground wire is not going to have any voltage on it. But it's that first part of that sentence that's the problem. Most of the time. Well, what about when it is powered up? What if it is energized because of a short somewhere? Maybe there is a faulty component on your electrical system that you have plugged into. Maybe in your data center, there's a faulty system that is putting voltage on the ground. This happens all the time. This is not an unusual thing. So don't plug your body. Don't plug a wire into the ground and then wrap that wire around your wrist. What are you thinking? Now, the reason I'm going sort of really crazy about this is because there are some documents out there in the world for A+ and in other places that specifically tell you to plug into the ground port and connect it to your body. Apple had a document not long ago I was reading through, somebody sent me, where they told you to do exactly that. Do not do that. They have no idea what they're talking about. Plus, also, by the way, creating an electrical ground, which can be important, and if you have a separate ground connection, you could technically connect yourself to that ground connection. But the reason that we would normally do this ourselves in our industry is when we're working on a computer is to minimize electrostatic discharge. As it turns out, an electrical ground is not necessary to prevent an electrostatic discharge. You just have to make sure the electrical potential between you and the device you're working on is the same. And if it's the same, you won't have that static electricity. Static electricity is quite literally electricity that doesn't go anywhere until it finds a better place to live, and it'll jump over there. So when you touch that metal doorknob and you get the spark, you've now had that electrostatic discharge onto your finger, onto your hand that you touch that metal with. But now that you've touched the doorknob and you have equalized the electrical potential between you and that doorknob, you'll notice that if you immediately grab the doorknob again, there's no shock. That's it. Grab the doorknob again, no shock. Now go walk around on the carpet again, come back to the doorknob, there's a shock again, because now you've built up a little bit of charge, and now you have this electrostatic discharge that will occur because of that. So you don't need to be electrically grounded to prevent electrostatic discharge. You just have to make sure that you and the device you're working on are basically in the same universe, same electrical potential. And that's why you see us recommending to use a electrostatic, electrostatic mat, an electrostatic wristband, and connect the electrostatic wristband not to the outlet, but to a piece of metal that's on the device that you're working on. The moment you connect that to the piece of metal, zip, you've effectively equalized the electrical potential, and now anything you touch will not have static electricity damaging it, because now there's not static going everywhere. That was static, by the way, for those of you highly technical, these podcasts. So that's why that particular comment about the electrical ground was made, because there's people on the internet, there's very reputable companies writing documentation telling you to put your life at risk. And I'm telling you, it's that particular requirement is first dangerous, and secondly, don't even need to do it. Now, this is a little different if you're in a data center and you are putting up racks of equipment and you are plugging in a bunch of servers. You do want to electrically ground those racks so that if voltage does find its way outside of that box and onto that metal rack, all of that voltage will go to ground. Hey, what if I was plugged into that ground connection? Now you get it. Now that's where that comes from. So absolutely think about the concept of why that is good or why that is bad and why I am saying that and why other people are also. So anytime I now see that, I try to find out who published that piece of information, and I try to send information back to them saying, do not tell people to plug into a power outlet. What are you thinking? That is not what you need to do. That's not what this is about. That's not what we're trying to do. So hopefully that clears some of that up. We use these terms, by the way, interchangeably in an incorrect way. You will often hear people say, and it's just a colloquial way of describing this. You'll often hear people say, oh, before you take out that video card, ground yourself to the chassis of that system. They don't really mean electrically ground yourself. They mean equalize the electrical potential. Just touch it. Touch that piece of metal. That's all you have to do. So, in fact, you might want to do this as you are working on the system because the process of moving around can sometimes create a little bit of electrical difference. So you may want to touch the chassis, take off the back, touch the chassis again, take out the video card, touch the chassis again, put the video card in, put the top on, you're done. Can't hurt anything. Might actually help you a little bit. Just don't plug into an outlet, please. Please. We'd like you to be around for a very long time. Don't put yourself anywhere near that electricity. Always a bad idea. And I have no idea why. I think it's one of those things where one person wrote this on the internet one time, and it suddenly now shows up in a lot of other places because of that. It's the same reason people think that Cat 5 can't be used on 1000 base T, even though it is specifically in the 1000 base T standard. Those types of things just sort of they happen on the internet. You just have to make sure that people are aware. So I do everything I can to make people aware of it. Maybe that's the way it works. Okay. Let's talk about this next question. This is certainly top of mind, also from my good friend Anonymous, who asks, hi, Professor, what are your thoughts on RAM prices? Have you been watching RAM prices? Has anyone tried to buy memory lately? Oh boy, there's a lot going on with technology and RAM. It's remarkable where we are seeing trends with memory. Let's have a look, for example. How can I show this? So let's do this. So I'm taking a chart showing, I think this is from PC Part Picker. Just grab this. This is a chart showing DDR4 memory, 3600. This is standard, pretty common DDR4 memory. This goes back to July 2024, and the price of it's around $50, $75, looks like around $60 for a 2x8 memory stick. We get to May 2025, June, and then this year, suddenly, hold on a second. Wait, wow, no, what's going on? We're up here on this line, $125. We went from June, where we were at $60 for a stick. Now you're at $130 for a stick. What? This isn't cryptocurrency we're talking about. This isn't, I was trying to think of a good one in the, this isn't milk. Milk went way up. Milk didn't go up this much. You know, we didn't have groceries didn't go up that much. That's a huge difference. And it's the thing that we now all love to blame. So there weren't a lot of huge projects started this year from technology perspective. There normally, when you start getting into dealing with technology, you start to see a lot of different kind of projects. There's a project for databases. There's this cloud-based project. There's a project for imaging. There's a project for all different projects that companies will do related to technology. This year, because there weren't a lot of things going on, there was one particular topic that really stuck in the media. It's stuck on the financial news networks. It's stuck in the trade magazines. You can't get away from it online. And it's this idea that we have created an artificial intelligence. In reality, of course, we didn't. We just took the things we already had and we stuck the word AI on them, but that's not the point. The point is a lot of companies found that the marketing behind AI was bigger than AI itself. And so they decided we're going to invest billions of dollars in this technology because we think that's the future. Whether it is or not, we have yet to really see. From a consumer perspective, really not very powerful. From a big data perspective, super powerful. But we still haven't seen kind of the return on this investment yet. It's way too early in this. And so companies started their devices because when you have big data, and that's really the focus of AI, is looking through big data. Think of the potential here. We could solve problems we weren't able to solve before. What if we're able to cure cancer? What if we're able to identify invaders into our network automatically by sifting through more log files than we would ever as a human be able to read through? Those are some useful tasks. It would be great if we could do that. People would pay money for that. Well, because of that, we need to create products around that idea. And to do that with big data, you need lots of storage and you need lots of memory. Storage is a relatively easy thing to find on spinning drives. But when you get into solid state memory, you get into RAM required to run these extremely complex algorithms in the operating system, you need lots of RAM. You need tons of memory. And they started buying it. And memory is not a unlimited resource in the world. There's a lot of not just raw materials required and very specific, scarce raw materials to create memory, but there's also the technology we need to be able to create it. There's a manufacturing process that's relatively complex that not everyone can do. So you can't just jump into, I'm going to make my own memory company. You can't do that. There's a lot you have to do to get to that point. And so what we found is we started buying and scarcity happened. And that's what happens when there's scarcity is the price of things goes up. And that's what happens. That is currently where we are with memory, and we're kind of not done yet. The other part of this that was very interesting, when you have this kind, look at DDR, look at these averages, the average price of the last 18 months it's just enormous. These average price for all of these, just remarkable. That was just 3200 memory. That goes up to 120. So not much difference between the different speeds. Here's DDR4 3000 at $200 a stick, just about there. 3200 is above 200 at this point. And the amount of money now being spent on memory is ridiculous, but there is no other memory. It's not around, to the point that one of the largest consumer memory providers in the world, Crucial.com, saw such a ridiculous trend in this that they said, we are not making the money selling onesie, twosie sticks to consumers that we're making over on the enterprise side right now. And we don't see anything changing on the enterprise side for quite some time. So we're shutting down our consumer side. Why would I sell 2 sticks of memory to one person when I can sell hundreds of sticks to a single entity, a single company? That's a much bigger return on the investment. And by the way, we don't have the memory anyway to give to the consumers. It's always going to the businesses first because they pay the big bucks for it. And basically, we're being priced out of the market. So they said, well, people are not going to be able to afford this. We would rather have the margins for selling to the enterprise. So we're going to shutter. They didn't just scale back. They got rid of the entire business. Crucial.com no longer exists. So they got out of business. Maybe they'll come back someday. But that was quite a shock to most of us. But when you start looking at the memory prices, you might say to yourself, if you're in charge of Micron is the company that owned Crucial.com. Micron is a big memory manufacturer, and they stuck the Crucial name, and what you were getting was Micron memory. What Micron really thought was, if you're in charge of Micron, you're thinking, if we keep selling consumer products, we are doing our investors a disservice because there's a much bigger pie out on the enterprise market. And that's what happened. And that's why it happened, was that big uptick at the end. Do we invest in memory? Do we miss it? It looks like cryptocurrency, doesn't it? Every single one of these. Just up, up, up. These memory sticks above $400. A stick. This was at 120 earlier this year. Now a DDR5 6000 is over $400 a stick. What? I'm surprised every time I come in here. DDR5 6000 2x32s over $800 a stick. Yeah, I would shut down the consumer market too and just sell thousands of these to enterprises. That is going to be. So the big question, as Mike in the chat room says, I wasn't going to say it. Mike says, well, how's AI going to generate this much of a return on investment to justify the money being poured in? Silly Mike. Don't you know this is an underwear gnome kind of scenario? Nobody knows. This is one of those situations where everybody else is doing it. The hype is huge. Every large company in the world in technology is being asked about their AI strategy. Whether it's going to be good or not, this is the problem. And I think we've already seen, we're starting to see a backlash kind of on the consumer side because people are not getting much value from AI. You try to do anything relating to exams or studying with AI, and only 70% of what it's giving you is accurate and correct. That doesn't pass a certification exam, by the way. 70 is not a passing score. So it doesn't help us on the consumer side. It makes pretty pictures? That part's good. In fact, I'll give you an example of all the AI we do. The cover slide of that power piece is this really cool paper art kind of view. That was a real picture that AI turned into paper art. I purchase my stock photos. The person who made the original picture is compensated for the download that I created and the license that I got for this. And fortunately, these types of AI type photos are fine. I mean, if you want a picture of a dog on a boat drinking a martini while fireworks are going off in the background, it will make a picture of that for you. Is that worth this billions and billions and billions of dollars in AI? Of course not. That's not what it's for. There's a piece of that sort of along those lines where AI and where this technology is going to excel, I think, is in cases where big data is really our issue. Quite honestly, a lot of these things we say that are AI now, we've already had for quite some time. If you've ever used Photoshop in the last 20 years and you've highlighted something and said, get rid of everything around it, just leave what's in the middle, and it does it magically, that was just something built into a feature that's built into Photoshop. Now it's AI. It's AI-enabled Photoshop. So some of this is a marketing-ish kind of thing that's really taking existing technologies and putting AI on it. Some of these are technologies that have nothing to do with AI, that they're sticking the AI logo or label on it. There's no logo, I guess, but the label AI, because there's no definition really for AI. It's sort of the cybersecurity. It's the next cybersecurity definition. It's a great buzzword, but it doesn't mean anything unless you ask someone, well, what do you mean by AI? And then you can get their definition of it and work for those. But if you have huge amounts of data that you cannot humanly correlate together, I'm thinking specifically about solving cancer, curing cancer, there's a potential there for now companies to really focus on how do we take these large data sets that up to this point, we really didn't even have the technology to even have. Now we have the data. Well, how do you sift through that in a way that is able to use the same thought processes we use to find correlations, inconsistencies, consistencies, and other information that a human would normally not be able to find. There's some value there, and you can apply this to other things from a consumer perspective. It's only a matter of time until every sports score is in the AI engine with the big data, and they're able to calculate for us the percentages down to 0.01% that a particular team is going to excel at a particular thing. Sports people will pay for that. So there might be a business model there. I could see that happening. We could see where those things might go, but a lot of the things that are being thrown at us at a consumer market are not really landing yet. So we will see. Maybe they'll come up with something that's a little more compelling to have that happen. I don't know. Say sports people already pay for that. They don't have that data. The data they currently have is done by humans. What they need is data over a much broader scale. I guess they have some level of it. It's sort of the same problem we have with Photoshop. We have already had programs, applications, algorithms that are calculating this stuff for us already. Now we're just doing it at a different level. That's really what AI happens to be. It's a completely different generation of compiling and correlating that data. So we'll see. But that is sort of where we took that idea of memory. Now we need more memory. Now we need more storage. Now we need more cloud. Now we need more. And that's what's driving that. I don't know. I saw an article today about Disney investing $1 billion in AI. That was an article today. And interestingly enough, all of the comments I've been seeing around that are people going, why would you do that? Maybe internally within Disney. I think they're talking about, here's some things we'll provide consumer-wise, but think of the data that Disney has about people and what they like to do and when they like to visit their parks and what type of things they like to see in a movie and what types of things they like to see on streaming video. What if they're able to take all that information and give you something that was more applicable to the things that were interesting to you? I don't know why humans couldn't do that already. That one seems like a little weak. $1 billion is a lot of money, but I'm not the one spending that $1 billion. So we'll see if the stockholders at this point are fine with that. If you turn on any financial news network, it's all AI this, AI that. Have you done AI? They're doing AI. Let's talk to the CEO about his AI strategies. AI, that's all they talk about. And so I think in some ways they are in a bit of a hype bubble, but we'll see where it comes from that. We'll see what products they really create. I've not seen really much compelling from my perspective, but if they cure cancer, I'm fine with that. So I'll take whatever craziness they come up with. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to figure it out. That's certainly possible. We'll have to see what comes on with that. Let's look for some more questions that you have sent. I know we're at the top of the hour, but let's keep doing this. We'll keep going through all of these. Yeah, the one thing that, I see companies like Disney investing that Disney is a huge content creator of art, of music, of movies, of television shows. There was obviously a huge strike for the folks in the United States regarding that type of use of AI. So, we're not done with the arguments yet. We're not done with the cost benefit of that. We'll have to figure out where that goes. Let's keep going through this list of things. Let's talk about this one because this is top of my mind too. It's from Allison, who says, what advice would you give to people getting their A+ certification now and the current state of the job market? I've seen a lot of people applying to hundreds of jobs and no luck/response from employers. Thank you. Let's talk about the market. Let's talk about where we are. This is a common question, regardless where the market happens to be with jobs that we might have. There's no question that our economy, from a technical entry-level technical point, is challenging right now. Companies have stopped hiring for some of these positions. I think initially their idea was to take people that were in sort of these help desk, customer support kind of roles and fire all those people and just put AI in its place. In fact, we saw a lot of that 6 months ago. That's all they were talking about. And in fact, a lot of companies fired a lot of customer support people. And I know this because I've tried to get customer support in the last 6 months. And I imagine you have as well. How'd that go for you? it's a worthless endeavor. Now you thought it was hard to get by your first tier human. It's almost impossible to get by your first tier AI nonsensical thing because they don't know what you're asking. They don't understand their responses. It has been a disaster from a customer support perspective. It doesn't work. They can't seem to fix it because they haven't figured that part out yet either. And in the meantime, they fired all these people and they're thinking, oh, do we throw out the AI and bring people back? There's sort of this mix of emotion and decisions that are going on around that. Then you also have the problem of the economy in general trying to ramp itself up. You have to have the economy pick up so that companies will begin investing in different projects. The only project they seem to be investing in at the moment is AI because, and that leaves all of these other projects without any budget at all. They really are putting a huge amount of money into this idea that hopefully will result in some type of return. But so far on the consumer side, on the customer service side, we are certainly not seeing a return. If anything, we're seeing an enormous decrease in customer support. So between that and between the economy and between trying to find a company ramping up some kind of technical project, it's a challenge on the market right now. You can see it with the jobs that are being posted on the major job boards, and you're seeing it, like with Allison, with being able to, you're having to send hundreds of resumes out and you're getting just nothing back. We are definitely not in a market for people, an applying market. We're not in somebody looking for a job. This is not the market for you. It's a very difficult job market right now. But we are seeing changes. We are seeing a small uptick. There are companies that have decided this AI thing is worthless. We don't have billions of dollars to invest in this nonsense. We're just hoping somebody gives us a good customer service thing. Instead, we bought something that was bundled together. It doesn't work very well. It's giving people answers about things that have nothing to do with our projects. We're throwing that out and we're putting people back in place. We're seeing some cases where something like that is going on. What we're hoping to get is more activity in other parts of IT. We want to see more happening on the cloud. We want to see more happening with whatever the next big transition is going to be with technology. It's just that a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of memory has gone into AI at this point, which in some ways I thought there would be a big push to get better technical people to manage these AI systems. Instead, I think companies have sort of hoping, I don't know if they've really been sold on the idea because these are smart people running these companies. They see what's happening out here. They're not fooled by any of this, but they're hoping that the result of all of this AI work actually results in some savings associated with customer support and other things. They're just nowhere close to being there yet. So what do we do from getting a job? Well, now you have to have a different strategy. You can't just put a bunch of copied resumes together that have all the same information and just start sending them out to hundreds of employers. As you can tell, with just this particular example and many, many, many others, that's not working. First, companies aren't hiring a lot. And when they are hiring, they now have hundreds of people to choose from. And so the pay is not as competitive as it used to be because there's no competition. Companies can decide, they can pick the least amount to pay for whoever they want because they now have a lot of people that are looking for these jobs. This changes very rapidly as soon as something else catches on. Fortunately, we hit we hit the holiday season, and there are a lot of companies that their entire holiday season is very IT focused. And there's nothing worse than a credit card system failing in December. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants the point of sale terminals stop working in December. Suddenly the RAID array fails and you're not able to store any of your documents in December. For those retail companies, that is a nightmare and a disaster. So we did see a little bit of hiring happening just before the holiday push to get people in place and be able to support these systems throughout the holidays. Maybe that will continue into the next calendar year. But you also have to be a little bit more strategic with your job posting. You need to make sure that you are customizing your resumes for the job that you are preparing for. Having a cover letter is always a good idea. Whatever format works best with you. I like a T-type cover letter, but you might use a different type of cover letter. If you're not customizing your resumes and you're not creating a cover letter, you're already behind because somebody else is. If you are not looking at the requirements that employers are looking for on a broader level across multiple employers and figuring out your strategy for what you need to work on to get those jobs, you're not doing the best for yourself either. Have a look at those job postings. What are people looking for? Do people want Security Plus? Do they want Network Plus? Do they want A Plus? Do they want something else? Go find out what they want. Go get that thing. Now's the time to do it. But as far as getting a job, we have to think about doing this in different ways. How many people do you know that work at the company you are applying to in the IT department? Do you know anyone who works there? Why don't you? That's one of the best ways to get hired is they already know who you are. And so if you've not gone to a Microsoft user group meeting, a Cisco user group meeting, go to a Palo Alto Networks user group meeting in your area. Maybe there's a regional trade show for technology in your area. You'll find those in large metropolitan areas. If you're in Miami, if you're in Atlanta, if you're in Charlotte, if you're in New York, if you're in Chicago, if you're in the outskirts of those, you'll very often find a regional trade show dealing with technology. Those are still going on. Those are great places to meet people who already work at the place that you want to work at. And we like to hire people we know. So if you're not already part of the LinkedIn that's associated with that person, you need to go meet them. You need to go to the Microsoft user group meeting and meet the people that are at the Microsoft user group meeting and talk to them. Oh, where do you work? I'm looking for a position right now. I'm looking for an entry-level position in IT. If I wanted to work in your company, what would you recommend I do? That's a great question. That's a great open-ended question that not only will give you a perspective of what they think of working in IT is for their company, but it might also give you a good bit of intel about things you can work on that might apply to other companies as well. And very often, those people ask for your resume because they have an employee system, an employee finding system, of a headhunting system within their own organization that if they get a referral, they refer you to HR and you get hired, that employee referral system ends up paying them for bringing you into the company. They've effectively used their own employees as recruiters. And so it's not unusual once you say, oh, I'm looking for a position, they go, oh, send me your resume. Because they know your resume might be worth $500 to them. That's a win-win. They get some money, you get a job. The company now has people they know who get to work there, not just somebody off the street that they've never met before. So that's another thing that might be useful. Different strategies can be really important. And there are another bunch of strategies you might want to consider once you get into the actual interview process. There are a number of very important strategies to consider. We've talked about a number of them in previous study groups. I do have a couple of videos about this from a resume perspective. It's in the YouTube video description of this video. How to get a job in IT with no experience is one of them. And then 5 reasons your resume keeps getting rejected and 5 more reasons your resume keeps getting rejected is also part of that YouTube video description. You might want to look through those, see if those give you some good ideas for strategies as well. It's a tough market. There's no question, but there are things you can do to help promote yourself, to help market yourself, and help get you in front of those employers. You want to get that interview. Once you get the interview, it's up to you. And there's a whole different set of strategies you can consider using at that point, but it's very difficult to get into the room right now. So get in those rooms and make the best of it. We are well past the top of the hour. Maybe I can get another question in because I've just been jabberjawing this whole time. Let's see if I can find another question sort of in the same vein of what we are working along those lines. We've got quite a bit. Here's a pretty good one. We can talk about this one. We can have this. is from Chris, who asks, Professor, how often do you update your software, operating system, and computer equipment in your studio? Do you follow Patch Tuesdays? First, I will say that I'm on a Mac OS, so no Patch Tuesday for me, but we still have constant updates that come from Apple regarding patches, so it's still the same idea. They release patches constantly. I have to keep up with my patches constantly. I have a different strategy for updates in software for my operating systems in the studio versus my operating systems in the cloud. So when you go to professormesser.com, there are multiple web servers. There's a database server, there's a caching server, and there are other things also behind the scenes. I have to make sure that those are updated. Many of them are Linux-based, so it's a different update process than it is for Mac OS or for Windows, but same idea, same problems, same strategies you have to think about. I tend to update my systems in the studio as soon as an update is available if it's something relatively minor. That's not always the case. For example, this is a perfect example. Let me get rid of me first. So here is my main screen. For those of you wondering where this is in the big picture, this is the one directly in front of me. This is my primary computer for the studio. This is quite literally an Apple Studio computer, and it is this screen, and you can't see because my big head's there, but let me do this. So now there is the secondary screen. So I use these two screens very often. These are usually turned off. This is usually turned off. iPad is usually not in use. It's usually these two screens I'm working on. So if I get an update for an operating system, if I am not doing a live stream, if I'm not doing a study group, and I'm not doing something important, I will update it then. I want that update. I want the security update as soon as possible because I do have a backup of all of this. So everything is always backed up. So I know that if I perform an update, I can always restore. That is a big part of all the updates that we do. I always have a backup. That way, if I run into a problem, I can easily revert back to where I was. That's the number one rule of doing a patch, of doing an update, of doing a security change. But today, when I got here, I was faced with this browser that I commonly use. I commonly use Chrome to do our live streams. It needed an update. Did it get updated? It did not. Why did it not get updated? Because I had a live stream in an hour. And that's the point where you have to make a decision. Do you wait on an update because you're concerned with stability in the studio? I don't have a separate system to test Chrome. But in the big picture, I can always do a restore and get back to a previous version. But I don't have time for that today. I'm doing a live stream, so that's why. That's why that's there. Let's get rid of that, put that back over there. So that's what we do in this studio. Relatively straightforward. I try to do updates as soon as possible to my network systems. We run a Ubiquity network here. I keep those all up to date. In fact, I say for those, just update yourself automatically at 2 in the morning. For my operating systems, I update when an update is available. For the core OS, try to keep those updated as quickly as possible because you do run across security concerns online that could have an effect on you even if you don't click on anything. That's the idea. The other part is the online systems. So the websites, the database servers, those have a different strategy for changes because I don't want to make a change to the website that takes everything down. So I have a separate virtual machine that I run in the studio. That VM is a complete duplicate of what I run online, and I do my testing. I perform patch updates. I perform operating system updates. I check new versions of software. I load everything on the VM and test it with my own QA process internally in this room. And then if that works, I generally will wait for an evening or an overnight, and I will begin updating on the website. And I generally do a few at a time. Usually when there's an update, there are constant updates for websites, WordPress plugins, the operating system, the separate software that I use for management and membership. You know, there's a lot that you have to worry about when it comes to patching. But I tend to, instead of doing a lot all at once, I tend to do one a day. We'll patch that let it sit for a day. Patch another one, let it sit for the day. Now, obviously, if it's a significant security problem, I patch it immediately. I can do that in real time and nobody is affected by that. I can test internally real quick, make sure it works okay. I can then push that into production and we're good. No problem with that. And of course, I have backups, images that have already been taken of those systems, and I can apply those images and go back into them and restore my web servers if I want to. I also have multiple web servers on a load balancer. I do have the option for pulling one server or all but one server off the load balancer, updating that one server, and then seeing how it goes. If something goes horribly wrong, I can turn that one off and bring the others back into production. I've never had to do that because we do so much legwork beforehand. But I have been presented with, I have a third-party service I use for web-based firewalling, and that third-party service will send me alerts saying this particular WordPress plugin was found to have a critical vulnerability, and that vulnerability is currently being taken advantage of in the wild. Oh, I need to fix that right now. So I will test real quick internally. I'll click update on this side. It happens in just a few seconds. It's updated and now we're safe. So occasionally, a couple times a year, I might have to do that. But most of the time, it's a very standardized format. I come from corporate America. I come from working in IT departments with hundreds or thousands of servers that have to be updated. So the idea of change control and the idea of a moderated process that can be monitored and reverted is incredibly important to me because I've seen how valuable that particular thing is. So that is our strategy. We do kind of a Patch Tuesday thing, but it's more focused on getting the right thing at the right time for the severity that it happens to be. And I have the luxury of having very few systems, so I really can determine which patches are security patches, which patches are quality of life patches, which patches have to be deployed so that I can install something else. Those happen all the time. Let's keep going through this. I know I'm talking a lot today. I guess I'm sort of compensating. I know that I have tonight is the Game Awards, right? So I'm going to watch the Game Awards, which means I won't be working during that time frame. So I think a lot of me going overtime here is just pure guilt, and you're winning from that, by the way. Let's get some more questions in since we are here. More. Let's see. I've got a lot of questions you guys are sending in, a ton of things. There is a lot. Just real quick, Bridget asks, how come you don't add the pre-show and after-show to the replay? The YouTube replay has all of this from the moment I start the stream to the moment I turn the stream off. I try not to edit or put it in. Most of the time, I don't change that at all. Everything that is in those is online in the YouTube. I don't put the pre-show in the YouTube, in the podcast, audio-only podcast deploy. That pre-show is not there. For a podcast, just didn't seem like the right format to have the pre-show in it. So it starts right at the beginning, 10 minutes in when we do the title slide and after. And the after show is there as well. The after show is a separate file. It's a separate entry in the podcast list, but they're all there as well. So I try to add all the pre-shows and all the after shows to that. Real quick in the chat room, a couple of people have said, oh, I'm going to watch the Game Awards as well. I would like to hear from the people that are there that are going to watch the Game Awards. What game are you watching for? Which are there? For me, it is all the ARPG stuff. There's quite a battle going on in the ARPG area. This would be for Diablo 4, for Path of Exile, and Path of Exile 2. There's a lot that is going there. So if you're someone who's looking at this, somebody else says Hades 2 is something you want to see there. Half-Life 3, is there going to be Half-Life 3? Is there really? I want to know. We are all this. There are people, Couch Cushion says people are obsessed with Expedition 33 winning Game of the Year. I don't know that I'm invested in Game of the Year. Expedition 33, it's got a lot going on there. My daughter, who also works here, has been playing Expedition 33, and she says it's phenomenal. So, and she's got a good eye for this kind of thing. More RPG. I'm with you on the RPG side. I would love more RPG. But I'm just so into Diablo 4 right now. I think there's going to be an announcement. We're all expecting one at the Game Awards, but there might not be. So we'll see. It'll be fun. It'll just be fun to sit down, put it on the big TV, and Mrs. Professor Messer, who's not a gamer, but she puts up with a lot from me, said I can watch it tonight. So we're good. We're fine there. What's it like gaming on a Mac? I have no idea. I don't do that. So I don't know what it's like gaming on a Mac. There's some things I could do on the Mac. You can do World of Warcraft on the Mac. You can do, you could do streaming gaming on a Mac. It's just not a great machine for Mac. It's a fantastic machine for gaming, by the way. It's just that not a lot of games are using it. So I don't do gaming on a Mac. Most of my gaming these days, I have a fantastic gaming PC on a ridiculously large television that I have used in the past. I use all the time. But now I've gotten a Legion Go S, which is these handheld, incredibly powerful gaming systems in your hand. And it is remarkable what it can do. I don't even have the latest one, and it's fantastic. So a lot of my Diablo gaming right now is on a portable system that I can take on a plane, I can take on a trip, I can take to a hotel, I can take everywhere I go. That's an interesting market right now. We're seeing a number of those hardware systems out there. It's really just a laptop, but they've stuck it into a portable system. What do you mean you haven't seen one? Mine is, it's sort of that, it's running SteamOS, yet another operating system. I'm going to see if we can get this one into the next A+. SteamOS, very important for our corporate environments to be familiar with SteamOS. You could get that Steam Deck, something good for that. I use the one from the Legion Go S from Lenovo, and they look a lot like... Gosh, the prices on the previous versions drop like a rock. But mine looks a little bit like this one here. So there you go. Legion Go S. It's an 8.8-inch screen on these. So it's just at the point where it's mobile. Like any bigger, and it would be very difficult to be a mobile thing. But how convenient. And it's got Bluetooth. It's got Wi-Fi, you stick your ear pods in, you turn it on, and you're gaming just like that. It's remarkable. And SteamOS, those folks at Steam are just crushing it. I also have an Xbox I don't use very much anymore because this has become my sort of, it's weird. I went from an enormous screen down to this, and I'm fine with it. I don't know what's wrong with me. I need an intervention is the issue. So that gives you an idea of that. The SteamOS folks are working on a Cube on their own console. Will I get that one? I don't know. I don't think I need it. I have a nice big gaming system, but eventually that will age out, 4 or 5 years down the line. Maybe that's the time to get the SteamOS console. We'll have to see. As they're saying, calling it the Gabe Cube. Gabe Cube. Very good. Well played, sir. Well played. I like it. I like it a lot. That's the way to do it. I kind of stick with SteamOS. I'm fine with SteamOS. Does everything I need it to do and nothing I don't want it to do. So I don't have any plans to add it. But this system, it's just an Intel box. So you can load Windows on it. You can load Linux on it. In fact, this is the model that comes with Windows. Microsoft has seen the value of this. They're obviously got their new Xbox in this same format. It's not from Lenovo. It's from a different manufacturer, but different manufacturers now coming out with these. This will be the next thing we have to troubleshoot, everybody. This will be the next thing we have to open up and upgrade the memory, replace the SSD, and you'll be surprised when you start looking at videos of these. And I would recommend you do that. Have a look at those. Somebody working on the Asus, working on the Legion Go, working on the one from the GameCube itself, or the game. The most important part to me is finding a way to take the Steam Deck and sort of apply that to other things we are doing. And other people have. They've taken these systems and started putting on a virtualization. They've been adding containerization. They've been putting this as using this for other purposes. There's a way we could get this in the enterprise, people. That's the idea. Well, I use this as I'm sitting down, so the weight is not the big problem. I've never found a problem with weight with these. They are big. They are clunky. They're tough to carry around sometimes, but no more than a laptop. So that's sort of how it works. It's really hard right now with technology to find the right balance there, but they're coming up with some interesting designs. And I like what they're doing with them. Am I have practice questions on Steam in the future? Probably not. I think we're fine there. We'll probably let Steam be Steam. We'll let practice questions be practice questions. And I think we'll all be better for it in the end. Well, I think that's a pretty good place to end up our study group for the Core 2. This is our last Core 2 study group of the calendar year. Our next Core 2 study group will be in 2026. We still do have Network Plus and Security Plus study groups next week. Haven't even written those questions yet, but I'm sure it'll be great. We'll have to figure that part out. But there will be more here in December. But for the people that come for our A+ study groups, we've had a phenomenal year. And our thanks for that go directly to you. We could not do this without you, quite literally. You have supported what we've done throughout 2025. We've been able to continue growing, doing these things with our study groups. We have a great time doing it. And the reason we're able to do it is thanks to your support. So we sure appreciate that. I hope everybody has a great holiday season. If you want something to do next week, come back on Tuesday for our Network Plus study group or our Security Plus study group. If I don't see you until next year, we'll see you on the next A+ study group. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you then.